Hey, don't count yourself out yet. Oh, yeah, it's Wednesday, right? We used to do this at 4 p.m. Eastern. What the hell is going on here? Hey, it's the BCX. It's Ramble time. I'm Campbell. I ramble. Thank you for joining me on this Wednesday, July 9th of the 25s, dead of the summer. Fired up to be here. Hope you can say the same. Thank you so much. This is Campbell's Rambles. This is where we raise a glass to the good life. We celebrate the wins, no matter how small. Good vibes only. You know the deal, right? Okay, let's live it up. I mean, when you got a bear koozie like this, you're going to get fired up for the main card minute. There it is. Welcome on in. Yes, Luke Noseda in the house. Luke, Long Island ball bag Luke Noseda here. Nice koozie. Yeah, brother. Thank you very much. I'm the BCI proprietor of this channel. I mean, sometimes this channel's hot, sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit. But today we're back at it, a little 2 p.m. Eastern start, right? Hope you're well. Drink them, smoke them if you got them. 2-drink minimum. Tip your waitresses. There we go. Yep. We're rocking the seltzers today. I mean, I'm not trying to, drop a cold one at 2 p.m. I'd be in bed by 4, but this seltzer life, not that bad. This Desert Life by the Counting Crows, very underrated album in their arc. Okay, that's just me talking there, but this is what we're gonna do today. I'm gonna let me clear my throat. Yeah, shout out to Bahama Bay in Philadelphia. There we go. Have mercy, babe. Yep, not doing an Uncle Jesse bit, more of a DJ Cool bit, but I hope you don't mind. There we go. Yo. What's up, Simone Tate in the house? Thank you for joining here. This is your weekly get together to talk in wide circles, right? I'll do the talking, I'll do the meandering, I'll lose track of time, and you guys will ask great questions, So thank you so much for joining. We got Brody Moret already gassed up and ready to go. He's smoking the cigs, watching his favorite show, Campbell's Rambles. Couldn't ask for a better afternoon. There we go. There it is. Whoop. There it is. Remix, living it up. Happy to be alive. That's what it's all about. I mean, I feel so alive, right? POD for the very first time. And I think I can fly. There we go. Yeah, there it is. Not like in an R. Kelly way. I already used the restroom, ma'am. Thank you, though. All right, there we go. Yeah, Marc-Antoine Barriot, my famous friend here from the French Canada. There we go. A little afternoon coffee for the working man, if you got that. Okay, it is BCX for life. Thank you very much. I also host a great podcast called Morning Combat. So please tune in Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern, when Luke Thomas and I present a remote episode looking ahead to the weekend action and some hijinks. And oh, by the way, if you haven't been outfitted yet in the latest merch in the MK collection at morningcombat.shop, we got a little LT 1, 2, 3 margarita testes, 1, 2 margaritas. There we go. And Average Joe Art on the design. Please head over to morningcombat.shop. It helps LTBC and LIL more than you realize. And, who doesn't want to look great in their schmedium for the summer, right? It's almost, actually, we're right in the midst of take your shirt off season. So, I mean, if you're on OnlyFans, that's a 12-month the job year. But if you're a wash dad like me, right, sometimes you got to get those tight T-shirts to remember what it's like to be 20 years younger. All right, I'm talking in circles. I guess that's what this is for. We do have some Noseda action. He drank a margarita in that shirt the other day. Oh, and it just felt right. There you go. Did you berate your co-hosts and the crowd and your guests or what? There you go. Great moments in MK history. Old man Dave, definitely here. He's cooking up some fan subs for Friday. Love to hear that. Reach out to us at morningcombat@gmail.com. Com. And like I mentioned, check out that merch. Okay. It's hot off the shelves for July only. Get your hands on it. Maybe get a poster, maybe an autographed one, right? Shout out to the 115, the strawweights. That's what we're talking about right there. So there we go. I'm going to wax poetic on a couple topics, this hour, and then we'll take your questions. Super chat is open. Thank you for your support as always. All right. Yeah, there we go. All right. Hey, old man Dave with the early support of this show. That's what I'm talking about, Sandine. All right. One of our favorite middle-aged men out there, regardless of his search or street corner history. He says it's hot out. Take the family out for ice cream on JBR and Chatri. Wow. Thank you very much for that generous donation to the lifestyle, to the pod, to what we've got going on. And yeah, tough to see what is going on One Championship. I know we talked about that on Monday's MK, that they're not going in the right direction, being dropped apparently by Amazon Prime, canceling the U.S. expansion, moving the home office. People I really like no longer working there, unfortunately, but hopefully they can keep it together. You don't want to see people go away because you want competition. You want a healthy business. I mean, I personally don't want Monsops and E's in my life. All right. You know what I mean? But that's just me. But as Chinchilla would tell you, it is a great boxing weekend. Okay. As Sandino tell you, we do need to get the 3 needle merch going for MK. We'll get on that. Maybe get a Reggie Jackson shirt going. There we go. And Arturo's back from London. We love this guy. It is BCX for life. What's up, Dad? Great to have you here. It's not my dad, but but shout out to my dad, just the same, and yours. All right. I'm doing good in life. We are about 8 days away from me getting on that plane for all things Pacquiao Barrios, PBC on Prime pay-per-view, July 19th. July 19th already. A loaded, can't miss, insanely awesome day and night of combat sports, from UFC 318 to PBC on pay-per-view to Usyk Dubois 2 to Bam Rodriguez back at it in a unification fight. I mean, that's a good ass day. But I get to be part of that crown, right? Where we're going to put the crown on 46-year-old Manny Pacquiao. You got to tune in to find out come Saturday night, July 19th, MGM Grand Garden Arena. Fired up to be a part of it. I don't even know who my full broadcasting team is. Hopefully I find out soon. I know it's Abner Morris and myself. Hopefully everybody else will be coming back, but check it in, tune in, check it out, drop out. Yeah, there we go. I mean, it's what I love to do at the end of the day. All right. I'll do it at the beginning of the day too, if they offer, but there you go. There it is. The BDD signature sounds coming in. Yeah. The BDE with that CT, Bubba, and who's also repping the PBC for life, or as long as they pay me. All right. So there you go. I've had a great run though. Hey, shout out to Luke Backman, one of the up and coming boxing YouTubers in that space. Good to hear from you. Loaded 2 weeks. Luke says you're damn right. This weekend with the NYC doubleheader that we'll get into in a second. Looking forward to hearing you on the Pac-Man call, BC. Thank you very much, Luke Backman. Probably the nephew of Wally Backman, former Mets second baseman and big-time drinker himself. All right, love that. Melcar X is here. BC, you're the only reason I won't have the volume down while watching Manny versus Barrios. Thank you very much. All right, tune in for Barrios or tune in for Sister, right? Yes, and yes, Remix Jim Lampley was on Rogan. Very good listen. Overall, yes, it was an enjoyable listen. And I think mostly because Lamps brought enough gravitas to the table for old Toe, in my opinion, to have to turn back into the podcasting Rogan that we originally all fell in love with. It was kind of a throwback performance from Joe to regale Jim with all of his own favorite moments in boxing history, many of which Jim was a part of. Now, it wasn't, revelatory if you're a longtime hardcore boxing fan or a longtime Lampley fan, but it was good to hear, despite the many factual errors put out there by Lamps talking about boxing history. But I guess that'll happen over a 3-hour talk on the Rogan sphere, right? You're either going to do one of two things, maybe forget some historical facts, or maybe not once mention Morning Combat, right? You know what I mean? But we closed up those wounds a long time ago. It was just interesting, though, to hear Rogan close that interview whenever they filmed it. I know it published yesterday, but whenever they filmed it, with him saying, man, I hope you end up calling Canelo versus Bud on Netflix. Only after that was recorded, we of course found out it is John Anik who is the play-by-play man calling that. So tough break there for Lamps. I did like his comeback, by the way, in Times Square. I did get the nostalgic feels. It wasn't 100% prime Lamps after 6 years, but for a 76-year-old legend, with that, sometimes you just need to hear that voice again. It's that syrupy taste that reminds you of your youth and the greatest times of your life. You know what I'm saying? There we go. There it is. There it is. Well, what do you got, Brody? BC, you're going to be calling the fight with Paulie and Colonel Bob. No, I will not, but thank you very much. All right. There it is. There. That's great. That's great stuff already from these people. I mean, these people tune in every Wednesday, no matter when I come on. Okay. So if you're coming on, BC, then come on already. Cosmo says Anik calling boxing ain't it? Well, no, I take that back. I take that back out of your mouth, Cosmo. I think Anik's going to hit a home run. I mean, he's called Klitschko title fights in the past for ESPN. He's done things like that. I think he'll be just fine. And I'm interested in hearing the potential chemistry that him and Max Kellerman has. And it's obviously been a long time since Max Kellerman has been calling fights as well. So I like where they're going with that duo. Let's see who they ultimately add on. They could go a number of ways, right? You can go Andre Ward. You can go Roy Jones. Could you go Joe Rogan, as one of you suggested here last week? That's kind of random. But as Signature Sounds will tell you, Rogan or Mighty Mouse, who's taller? I'm going to go, that's a pick'em. That's straight up a pick'em. I know Joe likes to wear those platform shoes when he dresses like a barback to call UFC pay-per-views. Shout out to Joe Rogan. All right, there we go. Same recycled jokes. That's all we got here. That's all we got. Same recycled jokes in this piece, okay? That's all we friggin' got. All right. Shout out to the other Luke. Another one. Yeah, Luke Backman, Luke Thomas. Long Island ball bag, Luke Nocita. Fantastic guy, Luke Nocita, by the way, if you ever met him. But are we picking up steam on the MK in your house idea? I don't know if we're picking up steam as much as, I got to say, I'm shocked. Luke Thomas won't stop talking about this. We haven't figured out yet a few things. We got to figure out how much this would cost, how we would secure those funds, whose living room or maybe marriage bed that we are going to invade. And, can I become the meat in a Mr. and Mrs. Saul sandwich? That's a little weird, right? But I thought this idea would come and go and die, but LT's been showing some pride in it. He's been sharing with me all the emails and DMs of the donks who have reached out and said, hey, I got my wife's approval. Come on over, baby. All I want is you, right, Christina? Yeah. So we'll see what happens. All right. Nocita, is it a live show or just a hangout? Are you talking to me or them? I think it'll be both. I think ideally it would be a live episode of MK in your living room or man cave or restroom, whatever you got, as much seating as you have for all of us. And we would do the show. We would break bread with you and your family. We would defile something in your house, probably just Luke with the upper decker toilet job, but it could be a grand moment in this show's history. Let's just figure out how to fund it, figure out how to do it. I mean, I got to have Jake there. I got to have Von Amsterdam there with the cam. Okay, I got to have this. All right, we'll see. Are we going to Omaha, somewhere in middle America? Are we going to Nova Scotia, Mount Unique? I don't know yet. I don't know. I'm just happy, again, that it didn't die on the vine. Luke Thomas can kill some good ideas if you don't like it, but he likes this one, that fella. He likes this one. There we go. Old Dave saying, do a potathon like a 24-hour Jerry Lewis telethon. How about one of those full house We Love the Children telethons with the Beach Boys, all right? Luke and BC go live until they raise enough money via super. Oh, that's an interesting idea. So you're saying we would do a podcast telethon to grift and solicit donations, not the normal grift and solicitation we do with this or the super chats. We're talking about the big time one, but I actually do think we could get some support from donks, but that is an interesting idea right there. All right. Remix. When Luke said you're going to bang everyone's wife, I bust out. Yeah, it's a good bit, right? But is it true? To find out. We'll have to find out, right? We'll find out in your house if that is exact true. And as Nocita would say, we'll have BC's intro song playing during the. Yeah, dude, that's actually a great idea. Maybe we need to raise a couple more airplane tickets and get Anthony Weller from the Nebraska band Head Change, who does that fantastic. Right? You know, that's what I'm talking about right there. All right. I told that fella, give me the intersection of Blue Sky by the Allman Brothers and Franklin's Tower by Jerry Garcia and the Grateful Dead, and that's what he came up with. So shout out there. All right, we're talking in circles. I guess that's what's meant to happen here. Let's talk out with a. Let's start off with the first topic. Hey, we got a great boxing weekend. Back-to-back shows. It's interestingly enough in competition with one another from the standpoint of power promoters in some cases, although Eddie Hearn, who has really navigated, if we're being honest, Eddie Hearn has probably navigated the Saudi takeover and Riyadh season better than anyone else, meaning he's typically the main lead promoter alongside Turkey for these events, and he's still able to float around, say publicly he doesn't need Turkey, but then also be right there next to the nipple when it's time to dispense more of that cream, right? Dollar bill, y'all. There we go. So we have Jake Paul MVP Promotions putting on a not small event on Friday in Madison Square Garden in this historic all-female card live on Netflix. I love their signings from Alicia Baumgartner to Savannah Marshall to, I mean, it's just one after. They just signed Ebony Bridges the other day, Kell Brooks' baby mama. So big shocker on that, right? You know what I mean? Remember that stabbing on that island? I do. Okay, there we go. All right. Can we get a what matter? He was the best guy. What about those murders? You will get that tomorrow when Inside the Damn Box comes to the BCX at a special start time of 12 noon Eastern tomorrow with Rafe Boogedy and yourself, myself, and maybe yourself if you show up. Okay, there we go. There it is. Yeah, it is time for Campbell's Ramblins. There he is. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Early question about this weekend's fight. So yeah, obviously Netflix, Taylor Serrano 3 Friday night, Ring Magazine number 3 or the Ring 3 or whatever the heck they're calling it. Versace 3 is going to go down Saturday at the damn tennis stadium there in Queens with a very interesting 4-fight card. I like it a lot. But let's start off here. Brody, I'll feel bad for Amanda Serrano, Moret says. Brody Merritt, Brody Myret, Brody Dickbag. All right, how about that? If Serrano goes 0-3, I think she'll win this time. Yeah, it would. Imagine that. Imagine if she loses yet another thriller, fight of the year contender, monster step forward for women's boxing, but yet it's 3 consecutive disputed decisions. I like that Serrano's the betting favorite. I scored the first 2 fights for Serrano. With Taylor turning 39, Serrano being the bigger puncher and really kind of being better skilled overall. This is not a knock on Taylor per se. Taylor really, really, really benefits from the 10 2-minute round format and essentially is a great spammer, great combination puncher. But that would be wild if Serrano, who's a first ballot Hall of Famer, in my opinion, a Mount Rushmore attendee of the women's boxing history alongside Katie Taylor and Claressa Shields from this Renaissance era. But yeah, Brody, that would be wild. Just the same, though. I've said it before. I'll say it once more. Imagine if Katie Taylor, I don't know if she'll retire, win or lose after this. You know, will she take a Holly Holm fight? Are there, Michaela Mayer, are there other matchups she might be interested in? I'm not sure. But imagine if she does walk away with a win. And imagine if this is what we will ultimately say about Katie Taylor. If she wins on Friday, she'll be 25-1 overall, the 2012 Olympic gold medalist, the sporting hero from Ireland. And I'm not trying to do the Ariel bit of painting her as the greatest human of all time, even though she's a Connecticut resident and has been for a decade and no one knew it. Shout out to Vernon, Connecticut, home of Bill Romanowski of steroid fame. But imagine if Katie Taylor retires 25-1 with 3 victories over her all-time great rival, and her only loss was avenged in the rematch to Chantel Cameron. Even though, did Delphine Persoon, that Belgium cop with no pause who just comes running into oncoming traffic, did she deserve at least a draw in their first meeting at MSG? Yes, she did. Does Katie Taylor get the benefit of the doubt in a Canelo-like fashion? Yeah, yes, she does. But we're not here to litigate that necessarily at the moment. This is a celebration of women's boxing, and you really have to give the powers that be credit. And in this case, the 2 promoters in this card, Jake Nikisa from MVP, who have boldly not only made the move by starting their promotion in 2021 with Serrano as the face, making her a partner, giving her a lifetime contract, but now they're cornering the market on signings. And then obviously Eddie Hearn, who either with Katie Taylor, who we signed right out of the Olympics when she turned pro 4 years later in 2016, to, Eddie's girl, Sky. But no, in general, Eddie's been pushing the women for a long time in the main event level. So it's crazy that here we are. It took each other in so many ways. Like, you needed this era to be as special as it is. I call it a Renaissance era because I believe pound for pound, we have more, even though women's boxing is still very top heavy in terms of like 8 or 9 elites, and then everybody else is kind of run off from there. I think we have the highest concentration of marketable, skilled, and potential all-time greats here at one time. That's why I think you can get 3 out of 4 on the women's Mount Rushmore from this era if you decided to go in that direction. Although obviously we shout out the Layla Ali's, the Lucia Rikers, the Ann Wolfs, all there that you could argue have just as well of a spot there. But for women's boxing to go from where it was even 5 years ago, when we were first building toward Taylor Serrano 1, when it was originally going to happen in 2020, then COVID canceled it. Then Serrano pulled out pre-Jake Paul when she was offered $300,000 by Eddie Hearn for that. And look at where we are now. Headlining Netflix. Headlining an all-female card at Madison Square Garden on Netflix after 2 legitimate all-time great classic fights, both of which, yes, had disputed endings, but both of which had all action, elevated the sport, and both somehow exceeded the entertainment expectations they each one had coming in. And then that second one is, so the first one is the most watched women's main event in boxing history. The first one is 2022 at MSG, produces the most raucous in-arena experience that many old-time boxing heads who have been to many an MSG showcase involving the likes of Tito Trinidad or Miguel Cotto. And although I wasn't at Taylor Serrano 1, and I do kick myself in the bag for that, I was at, Cotto Margarito 2 in 2011. And that wasn't a fight as much as it was a party, a celebration of comeuppance in a lot of ways. But for them to do what they did in that first fight, becoming the first female main event where both fighters got 7-figure contracts, then to escalate it into the rematch where they're splitting a $13 million purse, with Serrano getting 7, even though she lost the first fight. The reason is because she's also technically a promoter in terms of that. And now in that second fight, by the way, becoming the most watched sporting event in U.S. history. Did it benefit from placement on the Tyson Paul undercard? Absolutely. But in hindsight, it saved the Tyson Paul card. It did. It really did in a lot of ways. So now you get the third one, all female fight card back at MSG, and they're reportedly going to split a $18 million purse down the middle. If 5 years ago I told you, look at the roster of women's boxing, even though 5 years ago these two were active champions and on their way to becoming legends, and you had Clarissa Shields building quickly what she has built right now, which is, pound for pound number 1, Clarissa, 2-time gold medalist, 5 division champion, 2 times undisputed. To say that not 1, but 2 female fighters are going to go head to head on Netflix at MSG and each make $9 million. You got to give it up to the ladies. Let's hear it for the girls, right? Let's hear it for my late A's, right? Let's hear it. Let's hear it. Let's just hear it. All right. Not everybody loves it. All right. Sid White is on Rafe's page with women's boxing. All right. Women in boxing may be 2 of Rafe's 3 greatest pleasures in life, but not in the same sandwich. Okay. That's a Rafe Bugs thing. All right. There you go. Shout out to Books. You'll see him tomorrow at noon. Did we talk about that? We did. I'm just trying to remind you. Set your watches by it. All right. You ever thought 2 guys can get inside the box at once? Well, yeah, I've seen a lot of adult movies, but I'm just, wait. Sorry, that was, we'll edit that out in the post. There you go. Ham Sandwich says, I should be a boxing husband. Shout out Chris Mannix. Yeah, shout out Mr. Estrada right there. Sinise is going to be on the call tonight, by the way, or Friday night. I believe the call is Sean Grandi, Layla Ali, and Sinisa Estrada. And then I believe you have Andre Ward on the desk. Couple Ariel Helwani doing ringside, in ring interviews, all that stuff. So there you go. Wow, a lot of team Rafes, a lot of get back to the kitchen here talk. Okay, maybe not as explicitly, but yeah, Cosmos like, yo, I'm team Rafe for life. Okay, that's fine. All I'm saying though, all right, and we could be joking here too, but all I'm saying is that I'm also saying what Blood and Beer is saying. We should add more juice to boxing. Yeah. I mean, keep adding it, right? Eddie Reynoso's camp is. What I'm saying is, if you did watch 1 and 2 of Taylor Serrano, I don't know how you don't give them their flowers. I really don't. Okay, those are the pressure on them to live up to the hype and to then exceed it twice. And yes, we do have a scenario, in my opinion, Friday night that's very Pacquiao Marquez, that the winner of this third fight wins the rivalry. Straight up. Now tell me, do you really want to love me forever? Oh, right. I mean, are you just dancing with MC Scat Cat over there, Paula? Thank you. A lot of early 90s coming out of me today. Thank you. Okay. That's probably late 80s though, but yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So that's going on Friday. I mean, do I care about the other fights on that card? A little bit, to a certain degree. Okay. Brody's a big fan of Cherneka Johnson, Cheeks Johnson, as he calls her. She was on Ariel's show. Yes. She can fight a little bit too. Yeah, there you go. All right, Saturday night, though. Very intriguing. As Turkey, Rick Versace Reno, Mike Coppinger, who is getting into some hot water and stirring that ish up lately. They're all going to be there. I won't. I'll be covering both from home for the record. But Saturday night, what are we calling that? Louis Armstrong Stadium. So not the Arthur Ashe U.S. Open finale stadium, but I guess one of the bigger ones, but smaller, adjacent to it. First boxing card in that place's history. Have the ticket sales been as bad as they say on Twitter? It seems that way, although we've got Edgar Berlanga giving out free tickets. We're pumping out. They're probably going to, by the end of it, just fill the place with free tickets, but it is what it is. Will it be a better atmosphere than Times Square? Yeah, it probably should be. And I do really like these 4 fights. Now, the sleeper on this card that not enough people are talking about, because Shakur, Berlanga, and Shiraz, 3 of the 4 in the 2 main events that they're calling them, are taking up so much of the headline space, is this 140-pound title bout between Alberto Puello of the Dominican Republic, the PBC fighter, the long, rangy, high-volume fighter, him taking on Subriel Matias, the former 140-pound champion, the walking cyborg that is Subriel Matias. Yes, in his home country, was upset by Liam Paro, was audited, but the thing about Matias is he'll stand right in front of you and take everything you got, and the second he notices that you're taking a foot off the gas, he's all over you. This is going to be a very, very good fight on Saturday night. Now, I don't know if David Merrill Jr.'s opponent is going to end up making it there, that 10-0 Russian guy who fights out of Australia, because I believe that we just found out he's been drug suspended for a while. So we'll see what happens with that one. But main and co-main are great. Should Shakur have been the main event? I say yes, given the fact that it's a title fight. It's a fight against unbeaten William Zepeda that, while a mandatory, has been a test that we've wanted, that Shakur's wanted for a while. Mike Coppinger and his war with Shakur can go and say, hey, didn't they boo you and walk out of your home arena that time? They did. I mean, look, it's been 2 tough years in the public eyes, in the PR for one Shakur Stevenson. Some of that self-induced, not all of that though. But I think this man has a lot of chips on his shoulders right now. 2 giant Pringles cans, if you will. Check out the interview on the BCX I did with him for more on that. It is wild here. I think he's going to come in here, and as much as I do believe Zepeda is a good fighter, in fact, I didn't realize I called one of his on the first ever Ring City USA card during the pandemic in the parking lot of Freddie Roach's Wildcard Gym. I did call an early Zepeda fight. Completely forgot about that. The skill gap here, I don't think his pressure is going to matter. I think Shakur, who is, by the way, a minus 1,200 betting favorite, I think he's going to paint the type of dominant masterpiece, maybe even a stoppage here, that's so one-sided. Maybe it won't give you full-on Mayweather Gotti vibes, but it'll be in my opinion, and badly does he need this for his own PR, it'll be the kind of thing where we go, okay, let's put those last 2 years behind us and let's figure out now, how do we build to the Tank fight, or how do we build to whomever? Because he did, meaning Shakur, tell Ariel Helwani that he's on his last fight with Matchroom. He doesn't know who he's going to sign with next. He was willing to hear from the UFC, but not, or from Zuffa Boxing, but not at the typical price or payment structure that UFC is known for. And he did sign a multi-fight deal with Turkey. So does that mean a fight with Tank can only happen under a Turkey banner? I'm not really sure. We are seeing more PBC fighters come over, including David Benavidez, who is going to headline that pretty damn loaded 4-fight Riyadh season card in November in Saudi Arabia there against Anthony Yarde. So I don't know, but big opportunities for Shakur, but even more, he's got to fix the PR issue in a lot of ways. He's got to remind everybody that he's not as boring as his last few fights would indicate. He spends more time in the pocket, not getting hitting than his critics give him credit for. He does have lingering hand issues. He has had certain fights where he's focused more on figuring the other guy out, and that has created lengthy, boring stretches that are on him. I give him that. But this is the type of fighter who's coming after him and will not be as skilled as him. And if Shakur is even 85% of the fighter, I think he will be. I know he's pushing closer to 30. I know, or maybe he's already hit it. I mean, he's not, right out of the Olympics anymore. But this guy's a future pound for pound king. If you can't see that, then why don't you turn off your station? Why don't you get your eyes checked? All right. I get it's easy to hate on him. I like that he's been leaning into the heel bit. It is interesting, the escalation of this weird feud with Coppinger. Also, the interesting reveals from the very, very prying Ariel Helwani in that interview. He does get the facts out there that Coppinger is being used by. Now, I've heard reports from people close to it that good old Cop spends 24/7 in Turkey's hotel room and is like, the right hand man, the hey, Mike, tweet this out type of deal there. But now Ariel reveals that Turkey's using him to escort the fighters to Turkey's hotel room for their weekly meeting. He's sitting in on these meetings. Today, did you see Virgil Ortiz's father coming out and calling out Cop and being like, you're meddling in the negotiations here. You're putting out fake news. I mean, it's getting interesting there for old Cop, but that is, that's what old Cop does. And as D Hoff would tell you, Cop makes Ian Gary look like he's not a cop. Okay. That's your statement right there. Pretty hilarious. There you go. What do you got here, Brody? Turkey and Coppinger are going to be giving Zepeda 10-6 rounds. It is interesting how much Turkey is dunking on Shakur lately with all of these shrink the ring, jokes and the memes out there, just as well as how Turkey is playing up these media beefs against. Now, Cop's no stranger to media beefs. He speaks his mind. Fighters have long accused him of heavy biases. He's aggressive against them. He had wars with Kovalev in the past, many others. But to see Turkey almost having fun with that and now making these AI art memes of Dan Rafael and Ariel in the ring, I mean, it's lame. It's weird. We've long crossed over in Turkey Ringville from the idea of Ring being a journalistic, entity unto itself. No, it's a mouthpiece for a government regime in many ways. But interesting how much Turkey's dunking on Shakur. I don't know if it's to try to put him in line. I like that Shakur told Ariel, I'm not even thinking about that stuff. Whatever. I'm here to fight. But it's weird. It's pretty damn weird. I gotta say that though. Okay. Brody, Brandon Rios should have slapped Cop. Okay. There you go. I mean, that's you saying it. Shut the fuck up, you little prick. That's Bob Arum saying that, but there we go. All right. Dan Rafael says Brody would slap Cop around. I feel like they've almost come to blows a few times. I mean, people forget that I witnessed a near fist fight between Steven Espinoza and Dan Rafael in 2014 in Barclays at ringside after Rod Salka got sent to hell by Danny Garcia. You want more on that story? Check out my 20 questions BCX interview with Dan Rafael, in which we do surprisingly go deep on that. Chris, good old my boy Chris DePlazio had to jump in from Showtime PR to break that up. I was like, you guys really gonna throw fists right now? What are we doing here? This is wild, right? It gets a little hectic right there. All right, aloha, Telvin Kipapa, Big Papa as they call him in the house. Do not need this man to bare knuckle fight Daz anymore. Okay. Mahalo to you, brother. All right. Thank you. Brody, I love Dan's cat. Yeah. If you don't know Dan's cat story about Acelino Popo Freitas, go to that BCX 20 questions right now. One of the great stories that we've heard and told and said. Okay, there you go. So I do believe. So somebody in here said, "Oh, Chinchilla," said, "BC, what are your picks here?" I do believe Shakur's gonna do this thing. I do believe he's going to get dirty. I don't think he's going to take a lot of punishment, maybe to the body, but I do believe he's going to prove some points in how he stands in the pocket. And I mean, look, the one-sided devastation comparison would easily be Mayweather Gotti, or maybe even Mayweather Corrales, because a lot of people were picking Diego Corrales in that fight. That was such a huge showdown, and Floyd just washed him to the tune of 5 knockdowns before the towel was thrown in. And Corrales' stepdad saved him from further beating. But will it be that one-sided? It really depends on Shakur, on what mood he's in. But as much as I respect Zepeda, and as much as you can't do boxing math all the time, and as Shakur said it himself when Ariel brought it up about Tevin Farmer, styles do make fights, but Tevin Farmer, who looks like he's going to retire after that first round KO loss to Floyd Schofield, he had a lot of success against Zepeda. And he did it in the pocket with slick veteran style. This kind of stuff that Shakur does even better than that. So Chinchilla, that's my pick. Now, the most interesting fight here is in terms of like, what are we going to see outside of Puello versus Mateus? Is certainly the main event. Super middleweights. Hamza Shiraz, Turkey's favorite, like by far Turkey's favorite, right? Like maybe Turkey likes Tyson Fury a little more, maybe. But damn, does he love England's Hamza Shiraz, who it was a puncher at 160, a damn menace at times, but looked very human. Was it a full audit, as Luke Thomas would say? No, but looked very human against Carlos Adames. Looked like the ring generalship, the IQ was not on that championship level. Adames had to settle for that disputed draw. That's the one where Turkey's banging on the ring apron, telling him the scores in the corner. I like this fight a lot because both Edgar Berlanga and Hamza Shiraz, and by the way, last time I checked, it's basically a pick'em. They both have a lot. They both have a lot to prove in this fight. They both have a lot to prove to repair their reputations. For Berlanga, it's certainly the Canelo performance 2 fights ago, and the boldness of his victory tour in defeat, and it's not like he fought awful. He didn't get finished. He got up from that check hook knockout, but the way that he paints the picture that it was a toe-to-toe war, that he, had certain levels of success against Canelo that others didn't, is just incorrect. And it really helped all the people on the side that is Berlanga's more hype than real, or even the people that go as far as saying he's trash and he got ruined by that first round knockout streak and the sudden fame and rolling around in the convertible with Fat Joe. But he's not as bad as people think. And I know you can't put a lot of stock in that first round knockout he had after the Canelo fight against that guy who'd been, in jail for 10 years. But he hits harder than people give him credit for. He's very comfortable in tough situations and can swim, can survive. Now, granted, there's a difference between surviving against Canelo and thriving, for sure. But Shiraz ain't Canelo. There's no question about that. So really, for both of them, dramatically, desperately needing to prove themselves, you're going to get 2 hungry punchers that are going to go after it on Saturday. So this is going to be good. And again, look, you have the opinion of a lot of people. I'm sure Rafe might tell you that tomorrow. Spoiler alert. A lot of people think Berlanga's awful. He's not. He's just not as good as he says he is. And he's certainly not as good as the hype was on his initial launch. He's sort of sneaky solid, though. Will it be enough? What will Shiraz's power carry up? These are things that we have to figure out. Hamza has a new trainer in Andy Lee. They dumped Ricky Funes. It felt like Turkey was the reason behind both the trainer change and the moving up in weight. It felt like he was dictating shots. Why? Well, one, because he really likes Hamza, but there's a bigger, picture here, that the bigger plan. I mean, Turkey's already come out and say it. I mean, Turkey does a lot of things we don't like. Some of that is announcing fights for fighters who already have fights. Like Bam Rodriguez is going to be a part of this super card in November, yet he's got a unification fight first, July 19th. All right. But it's like, what are we doing here? We know Hamza Shiraz, if he beats Berlanga, is probably getting Canelo next May. So stakes are huge. Would Berlanga get Canelo with a win? not likely. He would have to knock out and basically destroy Shiraz and then aggressively call out Canelo. And then obviously we have to see what happens with Canelo and the Crawford result. What if Crawford wins? Do we do a rematch? Does, what happens here? A lot to get to in that regard. But the fact that both have a lot to prove, I'm interested. I'm interested to see if this venue works. I'm interested in a very ridiculous way to see what announcers this Ring 3 card is going to roll out. We got Lampley, Tarver, and Kopp last time. Like, what are we rolling out this weekend? Check it out Saturday night. I want to see all that. Is Versace going to be in the white gloves? I need to see that. All right. Hold on. We've got a text from the lady. Yes, I can do that. No problem. All right, there we go. Okay. So that doubleheader going down Saturday night. All right. I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm ready. It's going to be a big boxing weekend. I'll be working both nights. This is what I do. Okay. This is what I do. Let's go. What else we got here? Mike Conlon's back. Remember this guy used to, that was Mike Carson. You still around? What was Mike Conlon say? I watched the new Karate Kid movie. It was shite. Watched the new Jurassic World. That was shite. I'm expecting the new Superman to be shite. I'm pretty much not going to see all three for those same reasons. No, I probably will see the Karate Kid movie with my kids. I'm not excited though, as much as I friggin' love Cobra Kai. Love. It's not just reveling in the lives of teenagers like Luke Thomas says. It's a lot more than that. It really fits that nostalgic hole perfectly and extends the story to new eras. Kind of like actually, I'll say it. Cobra Kai did a better job than Creed even did, taking the Rocky universe to a new era. But I don't want it. But you know what I don't consider part of the Karate Kid, arc and lineage here? The chick movie, the next Karate Kid, especially after what that lady did in $1 Million Baby, which no one prepared me for. No one prepared me for. But then, I also really don't recognize the Jackie Chan, Will Smith's kid version. And now we're just going to combine the universe of all the versions for this. Yeah, I could have told you that was coming. Okay. I could have. All right. I could have. I think I'm missing some good comments here. Let me see what else I got. Oh, let's see what Backman's saying here. I have no rational reasoning for this prediction, Luke B says, but for some reason, I think Berlanga gets the job done. I'm telling you guys, he's better than you think he is. And Shiraz, especially with Berlanga having a chin and having supreme confidence, I get it now. I get why this is a pick'em. Who's the more talented of the two? Probably Hamza Shiraz, but there's this solid aspect of Berlanga. Not spectacular, not great, but he's solid in certain key areas that, confidence can carry you a pretty good way. It's going to be an interesting fight. We're going to find out. We're going to see that. All right. Telvin, you watching the new Superman movie? No, I don't do the superhero stuff. We already know this. And Black Adam ruined me. During that stretch when I was a good dad and my kid was like, you want to go to Thor, Love and Thunder? I'm like, let's do it, son. Because father and sons should bond, in my opinion, by, going out for a burger or pizza and then hitting the movie theater. That's how I was raised. Now, normally that ended with a motorcycle trip to 7-Eleven and sitting on the grass, and I'd get the largest Slurpee they had, usually 2 hot dogs, and then the Lay's sour cream and cheddar bag. And that was going great until the time we did it in the car, and then I spilled the full large Slurpee on the floor of my dad's 72 Buick Electra that he converted into half car, half pickup truck that was called the Truckster, that was carved in the back of it, and including one of those baby on board signs that said, "Why be normal?" That was my dad in 1987. Like, I'm not going to hide from that. When I spilled the full Slurpee on the floor, now to Dad's credit, we did go back and he let me get the small, but I had to endure, a lot of F words to get to that point. How did we get here? I don't know, but let's keep it going. All right. Yeah, I'm trying to star as many of these good questions as I have. Let me finish my rant, then we'll get to yours. All right. Then we'll get to yours. There it is. Oh, wait, what do we got here? Blood and beer. Y'all pumped as I am for the Coachman Town Hall this evening. Is that Jonathan Coachman doing a PFL Town Hall? If that is, I'm in on this because I think he should be. If this is what you're talking about, I think he should be the face from a message delivery / hype standpoint for PFL. Not only could they need that, there's also this other hashtag, anyone but Don. Anyone. Okay, Don, you're killing it. Don, go back to LinkedIn. Stop talking about MMA. Thank you. Thank you. Send me more info. Send me location on that. All right. There we go. Blood and Beer. It's an MMA fighting town hall, 4 p.m. BC. Okay, I better get off before then. Is this one of those Mike Hall productions where remember he did that with Darren Owen? He did that very well with Don Davis twice. Mike Heck the moderator. Yeah, Mike Heck the moderator, says Lazy Bed. Lazy Bed, part of Just Bleed Radio, the JBR boys. All right. Shout out to those guys. All right. Thank you so much, people, for that. Okay. Let's do it. My final bit of topic, and then we'll get into yours. And we'll get into this on Fridays, MK. What am I even talking about here? I'm talking about UFC Nashville this Saturday. It's I. I mean, I do like the developments here of heavyweight Taliesin Teixeira, the 6'7" Brazilian at 25 years old, who is 8-0 as a professional. All wins by stoppage. He submitted an opponent in his debut in 2021, and it's been all first round KOs since then. In fact, every one of his fights has been a first round KO. So it does remind you of like early Alexander Romanov or early Robelis Despagne. Did I say that correctly? And of course, he's 1-0. But here's what's wild. And this is really where the UFC, especially on these fight nights, even though I am happy that they are not in the Apex this Saturday. Go to Nashville. Let's get some energy. Let's get some real fans. Let's give Derek Lewis a chance to maybe show his hog, right? I think that's the only trick left in the tool belt we haven't seen yet. But as much as I like Taliesin Teixeira, he's got one UFC fight. He's already in a damn main event. He beat Justin Tafa on the tour of Tafa in 35 seconds in Sydney in February of this year. September before that, he had won a first round Dana White Contender Series knockout. So now we're going to throw this fella into the deep end of the pool against the all-time KO leader. That's weird, possibly ill-advised, but I'm kind of into it. I'm kind of into it in a freak show way. So I'm into that. And now I hope Wonder Boy doesn't get killed by Gabriel Bonfim, or probably just tapped at worst. Interesting. There's a few fighters I want to see. But even though technically it's not a better card than UFC 318 the week after in New Orleans, Dustin Poirier's retirement fight. And by the way, shout out to Average Joe R, who not only, of course, did this piece of business, but did Poirier's new shirt with the heads of all the people he's beaten on it. I saw that Joe was in my DM sending me the picture of Dustin wearing it at ATT, so I get down with that. But 318 ain't good, guys. It really ain't. Even with the changes of getting Kevin Holland in on 2 hours notice. But then Dana, did you see him tweet out yesterday? This card's fucking awesome! Exclamation points. It ain't, bro. But love the main event. Love that you made it a pay-per-view main without a title, or I guess BMF. Love it. Love when you take legends and put them in late career opportunities to get Bushido'd by the people that love them. Let me Bushido you, Max and Dustin. Lazy Bed, UFC Nashville card is so old. The official hydration drink of the card is Sunripe prune juice. All right, there we go. We got jokes in this LB. There we go. In fact, Lazy Bed's already back. UFC Nashville is so old. How old is it? It's so old that they're using Asper. Okay, well, we'll leave the jokes to Asper cream. There we go. Okay, there it is. There it is. Great stuff. So, like, am I crazy excited about this card on Saturday? This is a deep in row 8 type of card, this Nashville card. You know what I'm saying? Because you do get some Nate the Train in the UFC, all right? You do get some Calvin Kattar, Steve Garcia, as Luke Nocita told us. We need to care about that. It's going to bang. We get Tokos taking the tour of Tafa at light heavyweight. Skeletor Lauren Murphy's back. I didn't see that one coming either. So yeah, all right, I'll watch it. There you go. I'm sure the main card minute's going to be live streaming, from the parking lot. There we go. Nobody has you covered in MMA more than Luke Nocita. We got to be honest about this. That guy's doing live streams with Gaff from PFL Mena. All right. I don't know what that is. Right. There we go. All right, I'm done talking about things I care about. Now it's time to talk about things you care about. The dance floor is yours. I've been starring a bunch of good ones. I got some super chats coming in here. You can donate to the show and help the cause. It'll probably get your question answered sooner. Sometimes not, though, as I lose track of where I am in life. But, we're freeballing it, right? In life right now, we're just okay. That's weird. There we go. Let's hear from Cosmo Kramer. Bone Fiend versus Wonder Boy could be interesting, but might just be a sad wrestle fuck session. Very, very true. Very true. I ain't down with that. I mean, I'm not against that way of thinking. Long Island Luke saying, MC. Oh, this is Old Man Dave. MCM should do the next town hall as a watch along. Oh, main card minute. You're talking about Luke Nocita doing a live watch stream of the Jonathan Code. You know what we need? I think we need main card minute to do a live stream of this live ramble. That's weird. All right. Yeah. And yes, as previously said, Manzo, Inside the Box is tomorrow. That's Thursday, noon Eastern time, as Rafe Boogs tells you how excited he is about being the bread in a women's boxing sandwich this Friday night. So get fired up into that. All right. Let's hit a couple of these. Chinchilla, are you into newer jam acts like Billy Strings, Goose, and King Giz? So a lot of people have been DMing me about the King Giz vibe. What do they call King? They got that weird ass name. I have not gotten into them yet. Billy Strings, as we've talked about, and I get a lot of solicitation from you guys loving Billy Strings. I mean, I talked to O'Teal about Billy Strings. I mean, for some reason, I just haven't made the leap yet. I will. I guarantee I'm going to love it. I mean, if Bob Weir loves him as much as he does, I'm going to love him. I'll get into that. Now, Goose, on the other hand, yes, as we've talked about, that last album was my entry to Goose. And this is a band from Wilton, Connecticut. So shout out to the New Kings of Connecticut. This jam band with the most recent album is coming out this year that they're touring right now. Everything Must Go. But 2022's Dripfield, that record with the fantastic song Hunger Sight that I, fell into on Sirius XM radio. That's my entry point into this fantastic jam band. And my guy Bogo, my best friend of all time, just went to their concert in West Haven. They're at West Haven, near the Yale campus, but right near the New Haven line, right near the Yale Bowl. They've turned the old tennis stadium. They used to have a Pilot Pen tennis tournament there in New Haven every year. It was a women's event. They have turned that into an outdoor music venue. But the cool part is, because it's in an actual neighborhood, and this is only cool if you're old like me, they got to be done at 10 p.m. So the concerts start early. It starts when it's light out. It's a great venue. I saw My Morning Jacket there twice, and there we go. Took my son to his first concert there. So I couldn't go to that one, but Bogo told me they absolutely jammed. They kicked ass. So I'm going to be making further movements into Goose. That's just the thing. At the end of the day, you can't see it all. You can't. Okay, you really can't. I'm trying though. I'm trying to hear it all. I'm trying to see it all. All right. NYM. Let's go Mets. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Thank you for your support. I don't care how humble Taylor acts. She's a dirty fighter. Interesting. Now, is she purposefully dirty? I won't go that far. But does she fight in an aggressive style, often leaping in with, almost squaring up with combinations and leaping? Yeah, kind of, and she wouldn't be the first all-time great fighter to do that. I mean, you remember what Mike Tyson said about Evander Holyfield's headbutts? It led to the bite. There have been. I don't think she's dirty. She greatly benefits from the 10-round 2-minute system. She used her A-side leverage in all 3 fights, including the third one on Friday, to make sure that it didn't evolve into the 12-round, 3-minute round men's style. Eddie Hearn did tell me that, as you know, I had him on last month. Not only does he think it's more exciting, but that's, I think, his public ploy of supporting Taylor and not criticizing her. He specifically did say it's not as hard as you think. It's not as easy as you think in a undisputed championship match to get all 4 sanctioning bodies to agree to that format. So either way, I still think it's something greatly that Taylor benefits from. I'm not going to call her dirty, but the way that second fight was refereed, the way that the impact that those repeated headbutts had, and then to see her get this decision, it's weird. The first fight was a split decision. The second one's unanimous, but it's even closer than the first fight if you actually look at the scores. And I think the second one's harder to justify. It felt like in that absolute war. And I think those headbutts sped up that fight to even be more aggressive. Taylor fought a little bit dirty in that. Is she a dirty fighter? No. Does she benefit from things that cross over into the dirty side at times? Yes. Can I still justify that and not call her dirty? Yes, I do think she's an upstanding citizen, not related to her current Connecticut residency. But yeah, there we go. There we go. That's what I got for you. That's your answer. All right. Okay. Salvador Darty is in the house. BC, I'm working on my best man speech for my brother's wedding. Have you been a best man before? Any tips? Touching tips. I have not been a best man. That shows you how good of a friend I am. No, I have been in people's weddings. I've specifically not been a best man, so I don't have that great story. Now, if I was a best man, probably at any point between the ages of 18 and maybe even as far as 27, I would have been that guy who drank too much and gave an inappropriate speech that referenced somebody you slept with years earlier, and then probably wouldn't have been welcome back in that person's house moving forward. So thank you very much. But if I can give you any tips, avoid that, please. Avoid being overly sappy and lame. Definitely close with a bang. I don't mean like, try to solicit the bride. I mean, let it all build up to a heartfelt finish of love and, to the bride, you've changed this piece of crap for the better. Yeah, go that route. Don't be overly sappy throughout. It has to be a comedic journey. It has to be if it's gonna hit. Don't go too long on the stories, but pick out a couple notable things that really explain the relationship you had with the groom, why you're so shocked this absolute dirtbag could put his life together and find a woman as beautiful as that. But yeah, don't reference prior bangs from this guy. Please don't. All right. That's more of like a bachelor party toast type of thing. Thank you, Sal. Big Sal. Thank you. All right. Brody has been watching a lot of Wedding Crashers. You got to shoot your shot with a single girl at the wedding during your speech. Yeah, if you're not attached, then your job at that wedding post speech is to be not a predator, the apex predator. And I don't mean predator necessarily in a no means yes way. I just mean like that's your goal. That's your because weddings are the best times to we know this. We know, and we're not breaking news over here. All right, there it is. Key Pops, tell Taylor's about to go 3-0. She might. We got to find this out. We got to see this. All right. We got to see this. Also from Lazy Bed, can't believe Coachman is big brothering Don and stealing his place at the town hall. Coaches launching a coup. No, I'm going to guess from what I know, and I do know people on the inside of PFL, that it's probably more of a like he was asked to do this, but I'm sure Coach was pitching himself aggressively for this. Look, they got to get Don out of that spot. 100%. Don might be the best thing they have in terms of raising money or finding investors or, selling that they're the future of MMA and all this stuff. But he cannot any longer continue to set them back PR wise when they're at such a vulnerable point as everyone not named UFC has fallen apart. Maybe outside of KSW, who, who's put on these stadium shows in Poland. But yeah, there we go. There it is. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Death by Astonishment. Thank you for the fantastically generous support of this podcast. BC's College Kid Fund. Oh, God, I need that. Thank you. Love you right back, DBA. This has been a major, major focus for me. Almost a life's mission that, because my kids have, my twin sons who are entering their senior year of high school, they've come back from monumental physical setbacks at birth, being born 4.5 months early. I think I've told some of this in the past, and I'm not going to go on a half-hour rant about it, but just, multiple medical miracles, 6 surgeries each their first year, being in separate hospitals and separate. I mean, it was a wild journey to get to the point of day-to-day life. You know what I mean? The point of sustainability, the point of health. So it just became a real thing for me that the thing that I wanted, the greatest gift I could give them is to support the direction that they want to go in life, because I know they're going to do amazing things. And that's not just a fatherly bias and a deep rooted love and pride I have in the character of these two young gentlemen, but I want to invest in them. I want to vouch for them. I want them to be able to do whatever they want. So it hasn't been easy. We were in a lot of a lot of medical financial debt, serious medical financial debt for many years. I finally started to make some good money the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years as my career's taken off a bit. But that's the focus. That's my, after that, I got to figure out a new life focus. But for now, that's the focus. So thank you. Thank you for your support in that regard. And apparently the focus is to get in somebody's living room and have Luke upper deck their toilet. All right. That's another focus. So let's see if we crowdsource that one. All right. There it is. Yeah. There's a lot of conversations going on. One in the chat, one in my mind. Chinchilla, did you ever get to see Jerry Garcia? Got to see him? A call. You did get, oh God. That's unbelievable. So no, I did not get Jerry Garcia, who passed away in 1995. I was a subscriber of Rolling Stone at the time, was a junior in high school, or actually it was the fall of 95 that he died. So that would have been the beginning of my senior year. I remember taping that cover of that to my wall. I had one of those high school walls where there was not a space that wasn't covered by, a poster or something Beatles related. At that point, I was not. The Dead was always a band that I knew that I wasn't going to make the move into them until I was ready to go, until I was ready to take on the lifestyle, right? Until I was ready to, listen to every live show they've ever done on burnt CD, which really started to happen around 2001. So I never. It would be unbelievable to have had done what you did, and I know people that aren't even Dead fans that are like, yeah, I saw the Dead at, RFK in Washington in 93 when I was, 17. And I'm just like, oh my God, that would have been something. I have seen Dead and Company at the Sphere too, which was unbelievable. I have seen Bob Ware and Rat Dog a bunch of times. But Dead fans know that as great as Garcia is with the Dead, and as great as, the best years of live Dead are, whether you are more favored to the incredible 72 tour, including Europe and that unbelievable live album they put out, or some of the other favorites, the 1980 tour with that acoustic set, and the Reckoning live album that they put out. I'm not as big on 77 or 78 because I can't vouch for Donna Jean. I can't do it. I don't like that period. I'm sorry about that. And I've grown. I've finally come around to the Pigpen era after not loving that initially, the psychedelic era. I've just love that era now. But to have potentially seen Jerry, I would, if you said you could go back in time and see him once, as much as I would have loved to have seen the Dead on that late 80s resurgence, the post, was it the Built to Last album? What was the one that had Touch of Grey on it? When they kind of overnight became suddenly like pop chartable and had a new following, and the resurgence led to a, Jerry in 88, 89, like that guy was bringing it then, and of course I love old Jerry in 95 before he died. But if I could go back in time and see him once, I'd see him with the Jerry Garcia band. I would. I mean, the soul, the funk, the jazz influence that they'd go into, the concerts with Merle Saunders on keyboards are some of the best stuff Jerry's ever been a part of. Also a huge Olden in the Way fan, huge Olden in the Way fan. Jerry's, bluegrass supergroup that he was part of. I even saw Peter Rowan, who was in that band in 2005 at Bonnaroo because of my love for that band when he was old as shite. But yeah, if I'm going to go back, I'm going to see him, Jerry Garcia band, late 70s, because Jerry never stopped touring. So whenever the band was in hiatus usually because they felt like they were going to die of drug overdoses, Jerry just went right back on the road. Wild stuff here. All right, let's hear from Cosmo Kramer, a great supporter of this program and maybe even of life, but I don't really know that much about that guy. What's going on with Tank Roach 2? I wish I knew. Yes, it's been targeted for August 16th. I've, sort of got it, even though, these days with PBC, it's like a one fight contract as a broadcaster. I've circled it on my life calendar. Is it official yet? No. Hasn't it been announced yet? No. As recently as 2 weeks ago, have we heard publicly that maybe Tank hasn't signed yet? Yes, I've heard that. I hope it's not true. I mean, you see both guys seem to be training. Roach is doing a lot of interviews. I really hope it's much ado about nothing and Tank gets back in there because we need to see this. We need to see this for the career arcs of both guys. Did Roach ultimately get, I guess, robbed out of a breakthrough victory? Yeah, he kind of did. I called that fight. He pretty much kind of did. So it was a rare off night for Tank in a lot of ways. And I'm not putting the result on Tank being off. I'm putting the result on Roach being better than we thought he was, hungrier than we anticipated he could be. The impact of those two knowing each other and having been amateur rivals meant so much more than we expected. For a guy coming up from 130, he was the bigger fighter in there. He's talking publicly about moving up to welterweight and fighting the winner of Norman Haney. Roach wants to be great. We need this rematch. I don't want Tank to retire. And it's not just built upon the idea of I want PBC to be healthy in this vulnerable, precarious time for a lot of promoters, particularly American promoters, as we try to figure out what's this transition for Ring, Riyadh, Turkey into full-time marriage with Zuffa. What's the fallout of that? You got to have this fight first. You know what I mean? If we want Tank versus Keyshawn or Shakur or all this stuff, he's got to settle this first. I hope we're going to settle it August 16th, and I hope they call this guy right here. Okay. That's all I can say right now, because that's all I know. I'm not on the inside. All right. There we go. There we go. Old man Dave, I hope Taylor Serrano 3 at least has different athletic commission or judges at least. First fight was in New York. Second fight was in Texas. Third fight now in New York. I don't know ultimately who they picked for judges and referee. I have not seen that yet. I don't anticipate. Look, I don't think we had robberies here. The second one's closer to a robbery than the first. I think you just had close fights disputed. I mean, look, the 2-minute round is hard because even in those times, and it happened in both fights when Taylor was visibly hurt by the bigger puncher Serrano, not having that extra minute in that round to capitalize on that really, resets the fight every round if Taylor can go back to the corner and get revived. So in those, what I'm really saying here is in those 2 minutes, it's like you are ultimately judging a lot of times. Yes, Serrano's landing the bigger punches, but is she keeping that same output as Taylor, who is just sometimes just spamming? Those can be very difficult rounds to judge because there's so many damn punches being thrown and it's largely on even stakes. I'm not worried about that. Is that naive after 2 fights where Taylor got a Canelo-like benefit of the doubt? It is maybe kind of naive, but I don't know. I mean, the better story here would probably be Serrano getting the win in a Marquez over Pacquiao type fashion. But if Taylor gets the win here, I hope it's the least disputed of all of them. I'm not going to sit here and, expect bad things to happen. Let's give it a chance. All right. Old man Dave comes right back with 2-minute round suck, but it is what it is. Second fight, I will treat as a robbery, though. It's close. It's close. It's close. All right, what are we talking about with Randy Couture here? Lazy bed. By the way, no BS. Randy Couture airlifted to a burn center after injuries from an NHRA practice crash. Is this real life? Is this really happening? Oh, what a zinger. Nocita. Damn, I guess that's why Randy canceled on MK on Friday. I don't know if this is true. I hope Randy's one of my favorite fighters of all time. I always forget to say that when everyone's like, well, what are my favorite fighters? Rose, Joanna, Ortega. Yeah, Randy. Freaking Randy is one of my favorite fighters of all time. Like, it's not even a question. I mean, was he clean in his 40s? Okay, what do we got here? Here's a tweet from Adam Stern, UFC legend Randy Couture. It's a TMZ story. Was airlifted to a burn center with serious injuries after crashing during the NHRA practice at a racetrack in Kansas City. Couture was going through the licensing process in order to compete sometime in 2025. Wow. Damn. All right. Serious prayers out to Uncle Randy there. Wow. Jokes aside, serious stuff right there. Now, it's true story. MMA Fighting also reporting it. Whew. All right. This is a Brody Moret question. BC, am I crazy to think Zepeda could beat Shakur by decision? If Zepeda throws a lot, the judges might be Team Turkey, if you catch my drift. Now, Turkey did at one point tweet out that very weird tweet saying almost that he needs Shiraz and Shakur to win, because he's got big plans for both. And obviously, if you're looking at these two, Zepeda or Shakur, who does Turkey have bigger plans for? Shakur. I think Shakur is the potential bridge/bait in Turkey's mind to try to get Tank to make his Riyadh season debut. And I don't know if Tank will. And I don't know if it comes down to, if PBC's in a rough spot and Tank realizes that's the only way I'm going to make super big money. I don't know. I mean, Tank still is an American fighter who sells out American arenas wherever he goes. And, for what pay-per-view numbers you can do in the modern era, this guy's doing pretty consistent ones. But no. Look, if Shakur gets too counterpunch driven and isn't throwing enough volume, and Zepeda is having more success, particularly to the body, than we expected, could this be a close fight in which not only the judges might lean the volume? No, Shakur's better than this guy. I know I'm speaking about a Shakur who hasn't acted a lot like Shakur in the last 2 years. Not lost on me. But no, Brody, stop saying that, okay? No. Also, Brody, was Dana White controlling the car range? Okay, there we go. This. Yeah, I did one. No, I didn't wonder that. That's awful. Hey, Michael Carson, where the heck have you been, dude? This guy was like a day one. Like we had his $2 bill taped above the diner register, but he's back. He's back. Thank you for your support. Good old MC. All right. Michael says, I can't believe we're less than 2 weeks away from Dustin Poirier making that walk for the final timeless time. Then 2 weeks. What the hell are you writing? I can't believe we're less than 2 weeks away from Dustin Poirier making that walk for the final timeless. Then 2 weeks away from Dustin Poirier making that walk for the final time. Yeah, I can't believe it either. I also can't believe what's going on with this grammar here. I don't know. But thank you for the support. Yeah, as much as I'm loving this fight, the reality of it is Poirier is going to be gone, and it is crazy. He has had such an increase. He's probably had the best career of somebody who never won a UFC title. For somebody who spent their great years in the UFC, because obviously you can bring in Dan Henderson, who never officially won a UFC title, but was, of that level with Pride, even Strikeforce, and definitely had huge moments in the UFC. But Poirier is sort of the real one in that category in a lot of ways. The realist. I mean, he's one of the blood and guts. You want to talk about an American fighter, a guy that just, Chandler is always trying to represent that American fighter. But I think more often it's Poirier who sees him at the top at the end. Did that make any sense? Probably not. But yeah, what a career. I thought he'd be gone years ago. The resurgence has been wild. I mean, it's like a lot of end of careers for great fighters where you're going to have really bad off nights sometimes, like him getting head kicked against Gaethje in their rematch in Salt Lake City. But then he can come back and have the performance in a defeat like he had against Makhachev, excuse me. Wild. That was some legendary stuff out of him that night. All right, let's hear from Big Papa. Thank you for your support here. Do you think Sumiko has a chance against Dakota? A chance, sure, but it's going to be hard on the momentum that Dakota's bringing in, the confidence, the footage of how easily she took apart somebody like Tyler Santos, who was not that far removed from not only being in a UFC title fight, but arguably looking like she should have won that, or at least deserved, potentially a rematch out of that. You got to favor Dakota, and you got to favor even Big. It is weird, obviously, the situation. There's not really much at stake in this fight. She had to sit out 6 months this year and had to complain to get a fight after, being the biggest thing that they've got going as an organization, arguably, or maybe right on par with Paul Hughes. I mean, really, in reality, we say Paul Hughes a lot, even though we lost to Usman Nurmagomedov. I think because I don't think any of us think Usman Nurmagomedov is going to stay in the PFL that long. In reality, Usman is probably their best fighter and the guy they should. I mean, in real reality, they should basically be like F the tournaments, F putting out 18 regional promotions around the globe. We need to focus on Dakota, Hughes, Usman, Aaron Pico, Patchy Mix. You get the drift, right? All the guys they didn't resign because Don doesn't know what to do with these Bellator guys or really even know their value. Then why did you purchase that, Don? Oh, probably to get the inroads they've already created in Europe, I guess. I don't know. It just makes me mad. So yeah, I'm glad Coach is taking over. I hope Coach spits a beautiful soliloquy at 4:00 to get you to believe that they're going to turn a corner. I want them to turn a corner. I want there to be competition. I don't want them to suck. Okay, I don't. Thank you. Poolside bloke, my guy JVD in the house. Does Oscar and Turkey get in a scuffle on the tennis courts and Oscar ends up in fishnets? I don't know about that, but I have heard people say that, like if we ever get to a cop turkey fallout, the fallout's going to be as insane and spectacular as the Shab BGL fallout, where you know what I mean? Like, one day Chin's going to turn, one day Chin's gonna find out about Reddit, right? Shout out to Chin, we love that guy. And that's going to be epic. But I mean, you see what's going on with this lawsuit. Good Lord, getting served in a pizza parlor. What are we doing right here? Scorpion milk? What's happening with our lives? This is crazy. All right, that was that. Thank you. What else you got, Chinchilla? We hit that as well. Thank you, sir. Great question. There we go. What do you got, Brody? BC, last time you said Ryan Garcia would show out against Rolly, and look what happened. Zepeda by late round stoppage. Yes. I guess, you could go on that if you want. BC was wrong. I think we were all wrong. I mean, in reality, we thought Ryan was going to be 70% the Ryan against Devin, and then he's going to come in there and knock out. But this is why I loved hearing Lampley talk about this fight with Joe Rogan, because he was giving my boy Rolly some flowers. He came to that fight to win. He said, okay, look, what's the one thing Ryan's going to get me with that left hook? I'm just going to close the door on that left hook, and I'm going to land one of my own to discipline him. I can't believe it played out that way, but it does reopen the discussion about PEDs and that fight. We've been through it a million times. There it is. I mean, I'll put my name on the line for this Shakur thing. Shakur by stoppage. I'll put as Herm Edwards used to say, put your name on it. All right. Signature sounds. Chin had zero value to that podcast. Yeah, but that guy can sing. The guy can eloquently sing, and he finds apartments with a lot of balconies. All right. I mean, one day we're gonna get the real story from Chin on everything, and it's gonna be insane. It's gonna be epic. I don't know how that man does it. All right. Wow. This is a new fella, Mohi Abro. Mohi. Hey BC, Mohi here from Pakistan. Man, we got really, this man is in Pakistan listening to the BC Ramble. I mean, this is incredible, right? Shout it out. If you had to show 5 matches to convert someone to a pro wrestling fan, which ones will you show them? Mohi will include Rock versus Hogan. That's not a bad choice, because that's one of the best. I mean, it's a passing of the torch in every possible way, but it's one of the best, like, crowd dictation of the terms. And that's, I don't give Rock a lot of credit in the modern era, especially not since Black Adam and some of these other debacles he's been a part of. Project X shoes, where we're going lately, Dwayne. No. But his ability to work with Hulk, realize that the crowd had turned Hulk back into the baby for that one, and then play into that was brilliant. It was perfect. So yes, that one could be on there. Wouldn't be on mine, but it would be on most, and I get why. Yes, WrestleMania 18 in Toronto for sure. I'm going to add to that. Now, this is going to look a lot like my list of 5 greatest favorite wrestling matches of all time. But the artwork that was Ric Flair's WWE retirement match against Shawn Michaels in Orlando in 2008 at WrestleMania 24 also would need to be in this. Hey, what's this pro wrestling thing all about, and why should I care? Watch this beautiful piece of theater. Okay. Obviously, I'm going to throw in my favorite match of all time, WrestleMania 3's Intercontinental title classic, the 15-minute affair between Randy Macho Man Savage and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, of which the final assignment that I ever wrote, final story I ever wrote for ESPN before my exit in March of 2017. My last day there, we hit publish on a oral history of Savage versus Steamboat. So if you have not read that and you care, check that out. Okay. I got to talk to a lot of key people involved in that before they passed away. That would be on there. Omega Okada 1 would be on there. And even though there are so many people who prefer their final one, I'm not talking about the new final one that's coming up, their last one as, the true art. I don't think there's a better physical match that has ever taken place than their first meeting at Wrestle Kingdom back in like 2017. it just reimagined the physical art of the genre and what's possible. That one would be on there. Could you go wrong on any of the 3 Austin versus Rock matches? Their famous WrestleMania trilogy. Could not go wrong on there. Lazy Bed jumping in. Shawn Michaels, Razor Ramon, IC ladder. IC title ladder match, SummerSlam 95. You could go there. How about the one from WrestleMania 20 with those two? How about Bret Hart versus Owen Hart from WrestleMania 20? Yeah, I mean, we can go in a few different directions there, but I'd show a lot of those. How about that that NXT match in Texas? Sami Zayn welcoming in was that Sami Zayn, Shinsuke Nakamura? Or was it the other guy? Was it no, it was the guy from the bar. You know what I'm talking about. The other guy. Claudio, that guy. Yeah, that match would be all right. I'm rambling at this point, but it would be a nice mix. I mean, you could easily put WrestleMania 25 Taker versus Shawn Michaels, which probably is the greatest WrestleMania match of all time. Very easily put that one in there. But I think you would want a mixture of grandeur, over the top, great story. I mean, look, I'm going to put Hogan versus Andre in there. As gross in hindsight as that match is from a physical standpoint, was there ever a better story told? You know what I mean? Yeah, there was a better story told in the build to the WrestleMania 5 Mega Powers Explode match, but in terms of just full on, yeah, I mean, those were the days. Brody, Undertaker versus Mankind was the best one. Bro got put through a damn cage. Dude, I remember coming home from the bar that night and then watching that match on the illegal pay-per-view box over and over and over and over again, and just not believing what I just saw, what Foley was willing to put himself through. Holy crap. Yeah, you'd put that in the 5 too. You'd really want something that shows you the ridiculi, the barbaric, bloody craziness of it. You'd want something like Flair versus Michaels that just tells such a beautiful story. Yeah. I always say the greatest match I've ever been at, as I've said on this before, was that 2019 NXT Brooklyn SummerSlam weekend, best 2 out of 3 falls match, Adam Cole versus Johnny Gargano. When you're in the right place at the right time in the crowd and they're telling the right story and there's enough near falls and swings of momentum and high and lows, yes, it's freaking art. It can make a grown man cry. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, let's hear from Jay, our guy Jay Allen, the new father here. Shout him out, all right? What up, BC? What up, Jay? Joe Calzaghe, Floyd Mayweather, Rocky Marciano, Andre Ward. Who has the most fraudulent O ever? Please include anyone I am missing. So you are asking me of the most prominent fighters to retire undefeated, whose is the most fraudulent? Fraudulent's a tough word here because all 4 of these are first ballot Hall of Famers, without question. But there are levels to this. Is Floyd the most legit of these 4? Yes. Floyd ultimately got everybody that we kind of wanted him to. At the right time we wanted to? No. Did he use the system to benefit himself? Yes. But he also still had to go in there at 36 and mop up a young Canelo, right? He also had to finally go in there against Pacquiao and discipline him at 38 like he did. He got Cotto. He got everybody. So he's not the answer. The case against Rocky Marciano is that he wasn't in an overly great heavyweight era. You can extend that argument to say that there really have not been overly great heavyweight eras outside of the 1970s, the 1990s, and maybe, just maybe, the last 10 years. Maybe not for comparative all-time great ability of today's heavyweights to those from those eras, but just having a lot of viable ones, making many memorable fights, rematches, trilogies that we've seen. Marciano was also, a 5'10", barely 200-pound heavyweight. So he's got that going against him. But he did clean up everyone he could have. It's just that when you are going to compare the great heavyweights per se, you do have to hold a little something back from Marciano because of who wasn't available for him to fight. Maybe not as bad as you have to hold that same thing against Vladimir Klitschko for the era he was in. But you could say Marciano in this argument. But you might have to say Joe Calzaghe. And I hate to say that because he was great and consistent. And it's not like he didn't fight anybody all those title defenses in Europe. I mean, he fought Chris Eubank Sr. He fought, he fought who was available to him and won. We thought the American Jeff Lacey was going to go over there and kill him, and it was the exact opposite. And yes, I'm happy for Joe that he both moved up to a second weight class at the end of the career and finally did make it to America, in which he got off the canvas to beat a past his prime, but probably the last time Roy Jones still had something serious. Not the best of Roy, an aftermarket Roy, but not an aftermarket Roy. And then, of course, the razor thin victory over Bernard Hopkins to end his career. Maybe the fact that he didn't max himself out in 4 or 5 big Las Vegas main events against, whoever he could have. And that he was a dude who kind of just hung over there in the UK and didn't. Yeah, you got to say Calzaghe in this. Ward is also in this category because he missed a nearly 3-year chunk of his prime in those legal battles with his promoter. He got out when he still had a lot left as the pound for pound king in his, early to mid 30s on his own terms. That the thing about Ward is, did he have seriously all-time great ability? Yes. Did he max it out? I mean, I don't hold it against him per se, but there's chunks of his prime that you would have loved to see what he could have done. He at one time did talked about this with me in an interview after he retired, that there was some talk at one point about him going up to heavyweight and facing Anthony Joshua. And it's not like I needed him to do that to raise him up to some level. Ability wise, he's at that level, but the career, maybe like Khabib, felt a little incomplete when he retired. Yet at the same time, when he fought undefeated Killer and Kovalev and got up off the canvas to beat him, I mean, that was a battle for pound number 1. That was 1 versus 2. And then in the rematch, despite the sequence of low blows at the end, he found that bully's weakness and knocked him out. So you mix that with all of the wins, the Super 6 tournament, the wins over Prime, Kessler, Froch, the fighting Chad Dawson and just destroying him at that point of Dawson's arc. I'm going to go with Calzaghe as the answer, but I don't mean disrespect to anyone. And Calzaghe is one of my 5 favorite fighters ever. So I certainly know what he's about. Alan W jumped. Hey, what up, Alan W? I don't know how to read Ward's career. I have hard time saying he's all-time great in any division. Well, he did largely split his career there between 68 and 75, but the fact that he could fight any style, the fact that, if he had to be the bully on the inside, he would do that. If he had to be the slick boxer on the outside, I mean, Ward is an all-time great. I think it's just unfortunate. He was very stubborn in the way he handled himself. Now, it worked out for him financially. When he signed that deal with Jay-Z's promotion, Rock Nation, I mean, he got paid ridiculously. So it made up in his mind for the years with James Prince where he signed too early and took a bad deal and admitted it. And obviously the years where he felt Dan Goosen wasn't doing all he could, and he argued and fought to get out of that and lost 3 court battles against Dan, and then they ultimately settled right before Dan's death. So he was released, and we got to, see a little more of him at 175. It's hard on incomplete careers when the guy's the goods. Ward's the goods. I mean, Calzaghe was great, but Ward was all-time friggin' great. That doesn't mean that Calzaghe doesn't end up in the bin of all-time great. I just would have had to have seen more. There we go. I don't know if that answered that question for you, but I did put a lot of passion into it. Okay. Thank you. That's all I can do for you. Hey, Sidney Frankenstein is here. We like this guy, right? We don't know much about his internet search history. I'd like to find out more, or do I really? Is it safe to assume, Sidney says, that the Gregor Gillespie story is just over without explanation? Can you think of any similar stories? High talent. Oh, okay. I'm like, did he crash his car at the NHRAs too? What are we doing here? Prayers to Randy. Thank you. Yes, Gregor was a guy who appeared, looked to be future title contender. He looked to be the goods, and he was an American, and he was a wrestler, and he was all these things. And oh, by the way, he's 38 now, hasn't fought in 4 years, but he's got a 14-1 record. His only pro defeat was that at the moment, it seemed like rare resurging, stunning head kick KO from Kevin Lee in the first round in NYC at MSG at UFC 244. He did bounce back from that first defeat to stop Carlos Tejeda in round 2, and then we never saw him again. That's tough. That's tough. What is the main reason? Was there injury? What is the main reason here we never saw this guy again? In that regard, I've got to say, yeah, I don't know what the comparison would be, because he was there. He looked to be a great contender, suffered a setback, got it back, and then we never saw him again. Yeah, Lucita, what happened to this guy? I don't even know that answer. I'm sort of looking at his, resume going, what went wrong? Where did I miss it? Did his leg fall off? What happened? I don't really know the answer to that. Is he out fishing somewhere? I don't know that. All right. Kevin Lee, you see with the jaw wired shut, he says the worst pain of your life, Mr. Schaub. I feel for Kevin here, man. This guy's been through hell and back. Future champion Kevin Lee. Let's hear from Brody. Richard Dwyer. Well, that was a brief conversation. Dwyer is a legend. Dude, Richard Dwyer is a legend. Okay, Richard Dwyer is one of the most obscure, ridiculous, fantastic boxing betting analysts the YouTube has ever produced. And the fact that in the prime of Rafe and I obsessing over Richard Dwyer and adding, on my old soundboard that is now, because I upgraded the iOS on it and now it's unusable for that old system, it had like 13 pages of sound drops, and I think 8, at least 5 of those were complete Dwyer drops, because the man had this old-time classic baseball voice, the worst pronunciations of names you've ever heard, and just the weirdest things to say. Caleb Plant, think Sugar Ray Robinson. I'm so happy, even though Rafe jacked, that on CBS Sports' In This Corner podcast, or State of Combat, or whatever we called it back then, I did interview him. I did get the inside scoop on Richie. But I love when real fighters call him out. Hamza Shiraz positively called him out that time in that interview. I love when it happens. It keeps happening every once in a while. All right, we got Nocita coming in. Gregor Glepsky has had problems in the past. I think addiction issues, but I might be assuming. Yeah, we don't want to assume. Remember, did you watch the Rogan and Lampley podcast where Rogan's like, yeah, didn't Richard Steele kill himself? Jamie, look it up. And then 10 minutes later, Rogan's like, sorry to confirm that Richard Steele is still alive. Sorry, Richard. Yeah. All right. There you go. Yeah, great. Cosmo Kramer, BC, do you follow a certain denomination of Christianity? I grew up Catholic and was baptized, made my confirmation, did all the normal things. And then, like most Catholics in my town, just kind of forgot that ever happened. Once I got through that, I guess you could say found the Lord at a very key part of my time in a quarter life crisis. And I just threw myself into really just non-denominational Christianity. Went to a couple churches of that regard. At one point I was going to this wild church in Waterbury that was Connecticut that I look back on as fond times, but it was a wild church. A lot of crazy things going on there. Miracles happening in there. I largely settled with my wife at a former Baptist church that became sort of a non-denominational type deal, Bible-based church. These days, we haven't been at church as much as in the past, but I'd say I'm just generally a non-denominational Christian, if that makes a lot of sense. More about the relationship with Jesus than the religious application of man's, translation of the Bible, in a sense, if you know what I'm saying. Have been turned off at various times about what the errors that man can do, through the church, because we're all just human in the end, and in a lot of cases trying to do our best to interpret what we believe. Look, it's a personal journey for all of us, but to me, the daily relationship is what I'm, you know, that's my guide. That's what I'm all about. That's the most important thing to me at the end of the day. There we go. We had that one. Thank you. Oh, Carson back at it, bro. Thank you. Thank you for supporting this. Michael Carson's back. Big time support from you. You talking about this makes me think you should not only consider MK. Okay, so I think you're referencing the idea of WWF MK in your house. Should not only consider MK on the road, you and Luke should do a for hire service where people pay you to comically ruin personal life moments. All right. This is what I'm talking about right here. Okay. This is what I'm into. Yeah, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. Like, hey, Luke in BC, what is your going rate to be in our wedding party? Or hey, Luke in BC, could you give the speech at my son's bar mitzvah? Hey, Luke, yeah, this is really the future of the grift, right? You know what I'm saying? Where you provide us with lodging and airfare, and we'll come and ridiculize the biggest moments in your life, and Luke will blow out your plumbing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I'm with you, Carson. That would be pretty decent right there. You know what I mean? I can come give you a commencement speech at your community college too. You know, whatever you need there, call us. We'll do it. No, look, to be fair with you regarding this great idea, it is harder this era these days at this moment post Showtime. I mean, we don't, you know, as Cinderella used to say, don't know what you got till it's gone. Mm-hmm. I mean, if this was 2022 when we were on top of the world, you know what I'm saying? I could text Matt Snyder and go, hey, I got an idea. Why don't we use the Showtime budget to go to Saul's house? And as he's cleaning the gutters, we'll smoke out of a hookah on camera on the roof of his house with his wife and his dad and his brother there. And they'd probably be like, yeah, sure. You know what I mean? That's great. Bomber jackets for everybody. I do believe there is at least another big era for MK still to come. And what I mean by big era is obviously a financial boon period where we are either tied to a network or a sponsor, where it's not just keeping the lights on. And I would say this era, 2025, is better than 2024, which is really all about just keeping the lights on. Now, at least we're, you know, I mean, look, we got a studio in New York City that we go to once a week, not nothing. We're doing pregame previews. We got some Cuervo money. We're doing shots of tequila. It's all good. But yes, I have an endless run of weird ideas like this that we just need an irresponsible budget one day to get to that. Can we get back to that point? Well, yeah, I think, you know, combat sports in my career, which is, you know, I've been in journalism, I guess you could go say since 1998. Or you could even technically say since 1995 when I was taking paychecks from my local newspaper just to report on, you know, not even write stories, just keep score at high school sporting events and provide, you know. So I've been in the game a long time, but I've been in the highest levels of combat sports, I guess you could reasonably say, for 15 years. I've seen the up and down, the ebb and flow. I've seen it at ESPN where it's like, for these 2 years, we don't give a damn about combat. Oh, 2 years from now, we really care about it for 3 years. Oh, now we don't care. We're pulling all the money back. Like, it happens. It's cyclical. Part of me wants a big crossover commercial boom for boxing and MMA. Maybe that comes through Netflix or Turkey or Dana White's involvement. I don't know. Maybe that comes from putting big UFC grudge matches in stadiums. I don't know. I'd like to see this business, which really feels like, outside of the Saudi money, that it's been in the toilet the last couple of years, because even though UFC's making big time money this year, are they furthering the sport? Are they making the matchups we want? You could argue that. They might put a damn octagon on the White House lawn, whether you like that or not. But if everything's cyclical, we'll be back doing ridiculous shit again, I believe. I believe it. You got to believe. Okay? It's going to happen. Thank you. Alan W. supporting this show. BC is here to judge you. No, I'm not here to judge you. God can judge you. I'm just here to please the Lord, do right by my family, and maximize the opportunities I've been given. Like a lot of you, I've been given a lot of second chances in life, and I want to see. It's not want to. I have to see where this goes. I have to see where this ends. I owe that to a lot of people. I owe that to that guy too. There's no question about that. All right. That's my walk. You got to figure out your own. Thank you. BC not here to judge you. All right. Guillermo A. Background check would be warranted for in your house. A background check of the house or the or by the house members of MK and the crew. That also could be justified in this case. Now I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. Kevin G. BC and LT star in a remake of Dirty Work. That would be bad. Shout out to Norm Macdonald. That would be badass. That would be badass. Yes. Oh, Brody's in here. Brody's here, guys. How come we aren't talking about Pacquiao? I'm hyped for next weekend. I'm nervous he will be washed. What's your thoughts, BC? It's not a coincidence that when done right, the pre-fight documentary series, the HBO 24/7, the Showtime All Access, or in this case, PBC's Gloves Off Prime Video, which they have Barry Pepper narrating, the actor who, of course, did Showtime's All Access. Man, when those are done right, it could make you want to change your pick on a big fight when you feel like you already know the outcome. It can get you fired up. I watched the 2 episodes yesterday. I got fired the hell up, not just for I got fired the hell up to be at the card, to see these great action fights, to call it, to, you know, not just for Zoo Fundora 2, but obviously for the spectacle that is this Pacquiao fight. I really don't know what to expect. I will say they did a good job at using Manny's voice. They sat Manny down a couple different times for that, and it didn't seem like it was a straight interview session. It felt like they just kind of gave him topics and he expanded on it. It was the most, I mean, you know, Manny's had an up and down relationship with English over the years. And I say that meaning that, like, a lot of times it comes down to whether he is motivated to try. Like, if he's going to really try in English, he's very good and he can really express himself. But a lot of the times I think in interviews, he doesn't try or you know, it gives you the programmed answers. This was him really trying to explain, like, this is Manny's walk. He says, I've been given this gift from God, this boxing ability, this speed, this power that even at 46 has not gone away. You know, he's saying that the 4 years off, he needed it to just recharge his mind, recharge his body. The crazy thing is this guy's been a pro for like 30 years. 30, he turned pro when he's like 15, like Canelo, like 30 years. It's insane. But he really is and has always been a one of one. The fact that he carried his power up 8 divisions is insane. The fact that at his very peak, whether it was PED induced or not, the athletic offensive tropical storm that he brought to these interactions were, you know, darting in for 5-6 punches you never saw coming, stepping out, stepping back in and delivering the same. He's obviously up there with the modern freaks of nature that we've seen, the Roy Joneses, the Floyd Mayweathers, although in a lot of cases, they all bring a little bit different of what makes them aliens, super special. The alien Bernard Hopkins would be another one. But Pacquiao, even as age have caught up to him, and even at times, a couple different times, we thought, okay, he's no longer Pacquiao anymore. He's still pretty good, you know what I mean? But, you know, it was like, okay, well, he can't fight for 3 minutes of every round. But even during those times, the fact that he retained his speed is just remarkable. So watching that makes you want to believe that with this time off, and I think most importantly, with him giving everything he has to training camp, and I think there are levels to a Manny training camp. When he's all tied up in politics, as he's often is in the latter half of his career, even that Ugas fight in which he thought he was fighting Spence, there was a lot of talk that was just like a buildup of an advertisement for his impending run to the presidency. And I think there's been times, the Jeff Horn fight in particular, where we didn't get the best of Manny. He didn't go all in on the training. There's also been times like the Keith Thurman fight where he became the oldest welterweight champion at age 40 to hand the pound for pound undefeated Thurman his first defeat in a classic, where you're just like, how the hell is he still that good? Manny was the fighter of the year that year at age 40, shutting out Adrian Broner, knocking down and hurting and edging Keith Thurman. Now, can he do that 6 years later when we saw him look absolutely human and his age against Ugas a few years ago? When we saw him just, a year and a half ago against a kickboxer a couple divisions up, get kind of handled in an exhibition. Yeah, we're asking a lot. We're asking a real lot. But I have to say, for not personally being a Manny super fan, although I certainly love him and respect him and have, greatly enjoyed following his career and being a part of telling his inspirational story, this is making me want to believe. It helps that he has an opponent who is beatable. Mario Barrios is a very good to very good fighter, but the performances can be up and down. When he stops Ugas and suddenly, in his second run with Bob Santos' trainer, you're like, oh shit, if Barrios is at this level all the time now, like it might be different. He fought great against Tank before getting stopped late. Didn't do as well against Thurman, but that was a Thurman on pay-per-view who still kind of had it. By the way, Thurman going after Boots right now in the media. Interesting. That Keith Thurman told me that fight almost happened a couple times in recent years, but then it just fell apart for whatever reason. Back to Manny. It's making me want to believe. Barrios, when he went out there against Abel Ramos on the Tyson Paul undercard, looked really good for like 5 rounds, and then it kind of fell apart, and he was lucky to hang on to a draw in what became an absolute war. And if you've watched Barrios's career, there are fights that maybe shouldn't have been that close that became absolute wars, and he took a ton of damage to hang on. It's going to ask a lot of a 46-year-old to fight 12 rounds and to fight hard for as many minutes of each round as he can. But sometimes there is something to the idea of rejuvenation with many years off. It doesn't appear like Manny ever got into, really badly out of shape. And Manny might be that alien who can dial back some type of performance that he has no business doing on one night. Is it likely? No. Am I surprised that the odds aren't astronomical against him? I am. I'm surprised that so many fighters are saying, you know what? I think he wins this. It's become theater that I need to see. Luckily for me, and I don't take this lightly, I will be on that call. I will be the color commentator there along with Abner Mares. I can't wait to see what unfolds. I am now, it's weird. When this fight was first announced, I was like, okay, this is a novelty. It's kind of an attraction bout. It could lead to some kind of really fun history if Manny turns back the clock. But for me, it was more like they need this fight to sell, but yet I'm a little bit more excited about Zoo Fundora 2, Pitbull Cruz Angel Fierro Part 2, which is a rematch of the really fun brawl earlier this year that I was lucky enough to call. And then, of course, you've got what should also be a banger, Brandon Figueroa against Joet Gonzalez. You've got a 3-fight undercard on regular Prime for free with the likes of Gary Russell Jr. coming back. Like, this is a good-ass night at the fights on an already loaded Saturday, July 19th. But I can't lie to you. There's part of me that is kind of hoping that I'm falling for this, but that it could be true. That Manny can somehow, if he decides to go all in on training camp and maybe calls the old connections, you know what I mean? That maybe he can do this, and maybe he fights Barrios on an off night, and maybe this is suddenly a competitive fight. He also could get hurt bad. He also could get stopped. This also could be a really, 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 really bad idea. That also weighs on me. That's also part of the edge that's adding to this. So yeah, Brody, I'm thinking about Pacquiao a lot. We're going to get into that obviously all of next week, from Inside the Box to Making the Rounds. Not Making the Rounds. Good Lord, that was a great show on ESPN back in the day. I'm talking about Morning Combat. Morning Combat. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. C, is Bernard Hopkins the only man that looks more like an alien when he takes off his alien? No, shout out to B-Hop. He'll meet you in the men's room for saying that stuff, Mr. C. All right. All right. Cosmo Kramer, when you are telling your grandchildren about your boxing coverage days, who will you talk about more, Manny or Floyd? That is a great question. As of right now, it'll be Floyd. And some of that has more to do with when I arrived on the boxing beat at ESPN, where I was the backup combat sports editor, but I also wrote a little bit for the website. I also covered fights here and there. I also eventually, had my own live chat, was co-host of Making the aforementioned Making Rounds, the weekly digital show there for about 4 years. That was a time where when I first started going to Vegas, they would only send me for Mayweather fights. That was sort of like what they looked at as, okay, twice a year, boxing has a Super Bowl and it involves Floyd Mayweather. You and the whole team will go out there. But like when it's Pacquiao Marquez 3 and 4, we're going to send a smaller crew. We'll send Dan Rayfield and a cameraman, an editor, or whatever. But like when Floyd fought, it was full speed ahead the whole team goes. So it's easy to have been a part of the greatest fighter of that era, his biggest fights there. I mean, the Mayweather fights that I covered in person were Canelo, Maidana 1, Maidana 2, Pacquiao, Berto, McGregor, and then Logan Paul. So I was ultimately at 7 of them. I've only been at one Manny Pacquiao fight in my entire run as a journalist, which is wild. It's just the Mayweather fight. It's like, how is that even possible? So I definitely would say it's going to be more Floyd, but just the same, Bernard Hopkins is going to be up there, because the first really big fight I covered that I was allowed to fly to at ESPN was his record-breaking victory at 46 in the rematch with Jean Pascal, where he broke George Foreman's record to become the oldest fighter to win a world title. I jumped on a puddle jumper plane at Bradley Airport in Hartford to fly to Montreal. It was like an hour flight, I remember. And I remember there was no stewardess. The pilot was like, anybody need a drink before we start? And I was like, no. He's like, all right. And then he climbed over his chair. It was the smallest plane I've ever seen. But like, I went to that fight. I introduced myself to Karen Mulvaney, to Kevin Iole, to all these guys. And that was a big deal for me, that fight. But then Bernard was coming into ESPN in those subsequent years a lot. And, we really hit it off. I've had probably one of the greatest relationships I've had covering a fighter was with Bernard. And, damn, I don't want to, it'd be a half hour, but I got ask me one time about the story about Bernard ahead of the Kovalev fight. Ask me that story one time. I would say Bernard is going to be right up there with Floyd. Floyd and I have largely had I won't say a bad relationship, but like, I was aggressive early against him in scrums, asking him difficult questions. And I got clowned a few times, and maybe it's possible I deserved it at times, but it was a little bit more contentious. Bernard Hopkins and I have always had a lot of love for each other, and I appreciate that. But if Manny goes out there and does this on Saturday, and I'm, a big part of it, I don't know. Like this, like, I don't think we are all prepared, even though we were all kind of saying like, hey, we like Barrios, we love Sister, but like, maybe there's a chance here that Manny can do this. I don't think we're thinking about like, what if he does do this? What if Manny does do this? This would be a very legitimate win for a 46-year-old man to become world champion again and really add this extra chapter to one of the greatest careers we've ever seen. Wild. I don't know. Yeah. Steven. Damn, I guess sometimes you guys ask great questions. I'm like starring them quickly. How would Pac versus Spence look if that fight had happened? Great question. So that was a Spence who was supposed to fight Pacquiao. Spence pulls out. Ugas comes in. Yordenis Ugas comes in, defeats Pacquiao, gets himself into a Spence fight in 2016. But that, in hindsight, that's not a great version of Pacquiao. That's, again, I think a Pacquiao who maybe was the last to realize that he had lost more than he hadn't in terms of his, skills. I don't know if he was training at the fullest potential of him. He's tied up in politics at that moment. I think Spence would have potentially stopped him, to be honest with you. Now that's saying a lot against Manny's not only chin, his ability to not get hit all the time cleanly, but like, were you shocked that Ugas stood in front of him and at times kind of teed off at him? Yeah, I was shocked at that. I wonder if Spence could have like retired him right there, maybe even stopped him. I still believe in that version of Spence. I still haven't come to terms with Spence Crawford. I've come to terms with the thing from the standpoint of that's one of the greatest breakthrough singular performances in a big fight of anybody in the modern era that I can remember that I've seen. It was humbling. It was, Luke Thomas had tears in the arena. I was home because my wife was on her annual trip, so I covered that from home. But I also know that wasn't the real Errol Spence. I also know that. And maybe age caught up with him. Maybe the weight cut caught up with him. Maybe the accidents caught up with him. Or maybe they only caught up with him a little and the rest of it was just Bud dialing in, being that much better than him when it mattered. But I still think that Spence would have done bad things to Pacquiao in hindsight. I do. The Spence who fought Kell Brook was pretty great. That might be the best of them, because that fight was back and forth, and the backbone he showed to break through like that. Damn. All right. Brody, Ugas almost had Spence out of there low key. No, he did. Get out of here. Spence broke that man's face. All right. All right. Alan W. Need magic. Manny needs to win with all the PEDs. Yeah, he does. He does. Take them all. Call up Eddie Reynoso. Take them all, Manny. I mean, I'm half doing a bit, but I'm also not naive. I'm of the belief that it's been rampant in this sport for a long ass time from almost everybody who can afford it. All right. That's just my belief. Damn, Michael Carson, back with a bang, bro. I don't deserve this. Wow. Speaking of wrestling, says Carson, the leader of Cultaholic leaving has me wondering, given your love of boxing and being a fan of MMA, have you ever lost passion for the sports at all over the years of having to cover it for a career? It's a great question. Because as I've talked about a lot, I got back into pro wrestling fandom in 2015, and that led to, a run as I guess you could say, national writer, voice, podcaster covering pro wrestling from 2016 to 2020 until that candle just went out. I blame Vince McMahon. And suddenly I just couldn't watch it anymore. What about boxing and MMA? I particularly, now look, boxing has not always been easy to cover or watch during my 15 years. There was some really bad years. There was the every other year bit at the beginning of the 2010s where we'd have this great year and the next year would absolutely suck in the sport. And none of the power promoters would work together. And, go call up Rafe Boogs' great story in Grantland called 2014, the year of suck in boxing. But 2016 really sucked in boxing, in my opinion. And that was also the year that in January of that year, in which I am backup combat sports editor at ESPN, aspiring writer and talent. I've done a bunch of on-camera work for ESPN's Friday Night Fights. I started to do some stuff. And then I got a new boss, a new silo in terms of my department. Same job, but just a different set of people to answer to. And everything changed. And they're like, you know what? We're going to move you into MMA. You're going to be the MMA editor. You're not even going to cover boxing at all. And this is going to be your life. And, they shut down my weekly chat. They shut down the weekly boxing digital show I had. And suddenly I'm like all in. And, I had been covering UFC and MMA for years before that, even before I got to the combat team at ESPN.com. Any job I had at ESPN, I was the combat guy. Like, I was the guy who translated that to everybody. But when I went all in on that in 2016, it didn't take a few months before a whole new set of doors opened for me, because it was, the year of McGregor in so many ways, and like I said, I'd been an editor working on UFC cards for ESPN for years, but when you're suddenly the editor and it's me and Brett Okamoto and we're trying to take on the world, we're trying to compete with Ariel, we're trying to, whatever. And now the bosses are going, yeah, you're going to be going to every single UFC pay-per-view and sitting in the front row. And in many cases, writing the post-fight column that may end up on the front page of ESPN.com, because, ESPN knew they could underpay me and use me in many different categories. It was a use relationship. I used them for experience. They used me for cheap labor. It is what it is. But 2016, I was just falling out of boxing. It was a rough year for the sport. UFC's on fire. I feel like I'm following McGregor around the country. I'm getting these experiences I never thought I would, to be up close to that version of the UFC machine. It was just magical. So that was definitely a time where I was thinking, like, am I getting out of boxing? Have I lost that loving feeling? Now I'm very happy to report that that's not what happened. Within a year from that, I'm signing with CBS and leaving ESPN and, suddenly covering all three sports. And it didn't take too long after that to where my broadcasting career luckily really took off. But that was a sort of a turning point in 2016 where I was just like, I don't know if the box is there for me anymore. Like, I don't know what direction the sport is even going. I don't feel like I've had any of those moments in my fandom or career covering MMA. I've never loved it as much as boxing. But maybe that's part of the reason why I'm extra harsh on this current era, this calendar year. It's not that it's not 2016 and that's why I'm upset. It's that they have the ability to be everything, and they're more happy being something, but making everything money. That's that. This is this. You tell me what you want. I'll tell you what. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Probably not. Okay. What do you got, Brody? BC, have you watched the? I have not seen the Von Erich movie yet. I have not seen Iron Claw. I need to see this. I should have saw it in the theater. I watched it recently, says Brody. It was pretty epic. Zac Efron on that Vitor diet from 2013, right? I will check it out and get back to you. I have heard they've altered a bit with the story, as movies often do. They acted like one brother was never even there. I've also heard enough good about it that if you were a casual who knows nothing about the Von Erichs and you watch that maybe it is a good sort of representation of what was happening. I have a great connection to the Von Erichs because when I became a wrestling fan in late '84, that's only 4, 5, 6 months removed from Kerry Von Erich pinning Ric Flair to win the NWA title at where was that? At the Cowboys Stadium at the time in Dallas. I mean, that's insane. And when you grow up every day after school with ESPN reruns of World Class, and they're making the Von Erich dynasty feel like it's the biggest thing that's ever happened to pro wrestling, that was a wild ride back then. I really enjoyed those times as a fan. There's no question. So I need to see that movie. I was having Kevin Von Erich and I back in like 2017 randomly became DM friends on Twitter, and we're going back and forth. He's like, yo, can you help me get a hold of Booker T? And I'm like, sure, let me try. And that was a wild time. You ever have those weird moments in your life? You're like, how did I get here? That's probably everybody that entered this chat. Why am I in here? It's 2 hours later. This guy's still talking in circles. All right. Kevin G. Ironclaw was really good. Okay, Kevin G. Feels like it got an Oscar snub. Are you serious about that? Or are you just saying stuff? Dio, does BC ever say anything worth listening to? Really just asking. It really depends on the ears of the beholder. You know what I'm saying? All right. Duran 509. BC, was great to see you on Long Island Luke's channel, and we need more drop-ins. We do. I love Long Island Luke. Love what him and Gaff are doing with the main card minute. They've given me an open invitation. You'll see me there again. That time I was deep in the 8th row that day too. It was a fun day. All right. Let's get through the end of this. Appreciate everybody coming in today. I'm going to fire through what else I got left. All right, here we go. Michael Carson. I used voice chat for that. Dustin Bohr. Yeah, we noticed, brother. We noticed. Appreciate you just the same on that one. All right, J. Ray B02, my man. Thank you. I'm starting a Lego collection, Jay says, and may eventually make a mock MK set. Are you serious? And send it to y'all. Might take a while to get the part. Dude, if you did something like this is where I really wish we still had a studio of our own, and am not willing to give up the hope that, a year from now, 2 years from now, we won't have that again. Never give up. Never think that because the door shut, it's shut for good. All right. We'll be back. This is a great ass idea. If you did something like, the things that people have done for us, the creations that people have done for us, I got stuff all over my house. Jay Paquette sent me that. I got the big morning combat thing he sent me. It's over my workout bench in the basement here. I just so blown away that you guys connect with MK so much that you're like, yo, I want to share my art with you. All right. Thank you. That'd be wild. That would be wild. All right. Here's Tobias coming in. All right. Thank you, brother. Thanks, Tobe. All right. We're going to wrap this up. Everybody can go watch Mike Heck and John Coachman here. Watched 28 years later in cinema yesterday, Tobias says. And my girlfriend walked out after about 4 minutes. Now I'm the bad guy for staying and finishing the movie alone. FML. Dude, I don't know the insides of your relationship, but if you go to the theater with the lady and for whatever reason, she's done 4 minutes in and you're not following her out of there, I don't want to sound too much like Ian Gary, but what's the next day look like for you? Okay. You know what I'm saying? Because if Layla's walking out of that theater, I'm following her. No, seriously though, what is, do I know what 28 years later is? Okay, it's a 2025 film. Oh, it's that horror crazy movie. Okay, the post-apocalyptic coming-of-age horror film. Yes, I remember the trailers on that. You got to know you got to know your audience. I mean, if that lady can't handle that and you're taking it to her, then you got to take the L and go home with her. That's the deal. Then you got to go back and see it with your boys or catch it on streaming. Okay. That's just me talking. I don't know what country you're in or the dynamics of your relationship. Maybe you're from a place where king of the castle is the prerequisite. It's the default. But happy wife, happy life. It's not just the saying. It's a mindset. It's a movement. All right. All right. Yeah. All right. There we go. Thanks. Kevin G, 28 years later, takes some wild swings, but I didn't think it warranted walking out of. Okay, Kevin, that's a decent update right there. Okay. Okay, Mr. C chiming in, walk out of the theater with her, find a shady stream later that night. Yeah, come on, handle your business here, all right? Sal says you leave with your girlfriend or you leave with your girlfriend or you leave your girlfriend. It ain't, yeah, please, seriously. He knows it. Clay Luke thinks you need a new girlfriend. All right. I just think you need to, it depends where you're at in that relationship. Okay. Maybe this was the final, maybe it was, maybe you got to a point where you said, you know what? It's better for me to stay and watch this. I don't know your dynamics. Okay. There you go. Duran 509. When you signed my poster 115, I thought it was the copy number. I recently learned it was a weight class. Yes, we love straw weights in this place. Okay. Thank you very much. Yes. Shout out to the 115. Faux life. Okay. That's what I'm saying. All right. Blake Shake, you that goat, BC. We love you, feces. Thank you, folks. I appreciate. It's easy to think I'm an absolute weirdo. Believe me, some people in my family do, but I appreciate your guys' support. All right, Brody also saying, don't get too close with Kevin on Von Erich. Next thing you know, you'll be meeting your maker. That's a fair point. Everyone around him, unfortunately, has fallen. And Chinchilla, I rooted for the Freebirds. Dude, how freaking awesome was Michael P.S. Hayes back then as the leader of the Freebirds, coming out to Freebird by Leonard Skinner before coming out to his own tune, Bad Street USA. Now, I didn't like when he rebranded the Freebirds with Jimmy Garvin and WCW, and then they created that new song that sucked, but the original world-class era Freebirds with, turning on the Von Erich. That's prime early pro wrestling theater that framed and shaped my mind. Thank you. All right. Alan Dubs always supporting us. You don't want to do in your house, BC, LOL. Not in my house. Okay, not in my house. No, maybe your house, Alan W. We don't know much about you. Maybe your house, or maybe that's where my harvested organs find their final stop. I don't know that, but yeah, we'd have to vet it out a little on both sides. Okay, on both sides. Thank you. I've just been overjoyed at the people that have straight up offered and come in the DMs and with their wives, and the wives will be like, yeah, I approve of this. Let's go. We're going to make you a feast. We're going to have a great time. It's unbelievable. Luke is like, yeah, we got to sleep at their house too, on sleeping bags on the floor. I'm like, are you the same Luke Thomas that I grew up with? What? Alan Dub, I'm happy Pacquiao patched his relationship with Roach. So am I. It is great to see them. Watching that Gloves Off, it was great to see the band get back together. There is this nostalgic feeling about that. One more run at it, and luckily Manny doesn't appear to be as bad off as Ali was heading into either the Larry Holmes or Trevor Berbick fight, but we also don't want Manny to get there either. Dude, Manny is 30-year career. The dude's taking just immense punishment, but he is a one of one alien. He's just different. It's wild. Oh yeah, Brantendo in the house. We love this guy. California's finest. Bizpingian. Thank you for your support. Have you had breakfast in any other countries? Would you prefer any over a U.S. breakfast? I personally prefer UK bacon, sausage, and toast better than ours. All right, I've had traditional English breakfast. I really enjoyed it the 2 times I've been in London. I will not put that above American breakfast under any point, and definitely not Atlanta American breakfast, who up to this point in my experience know what the frick they're doing, as does certain parts of Texas and Arizona when you can get a very Mexican-friendly breakfast. To me, as a East Coast white guy, it is awesome. I will say breakfast in Paris was weird. cultural differences, what they take in, but you know, I can't. My wife and sons would not stop talking about the difference in, European bread and how it doesn't have all those chemicals in it, doesn't destroy your stomach and all that. So some of that was awesome to go through, but no, I've eaten breakfast in Mexico. I've eaten breakfast in Jamaica. I've eaten breakfast in Canada. I'm still a U.S. breakfast guy. Okay. That's what it is. That's where it's at. Thank you. That's just me, Brandtendo. All right. I'm not food racist, but was I a cultured food eater until my wife and I started dating when I was 27? No, I was very uncultured swine. I've come around in a big way. All right, a couple more we're cycling through here. Then we all got to check out Jonathan Coachman. Okay, we do. What the heck, right? Telvin Iron Claw was a masterpiece. All right, you're getting me excited. You're getting me excited. Signature sounds. BC, how familiar are you with Frank Rizzo and Saul Rosenberg? Dude, how familiar was I? From 93 to 95, you could say the Jerky Boys were as big a part of my life as Pearl Jam, as WCW wrestling, as the NBA, as, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's been very few times in my life. Now, I normally reserve this for music, where you have those power listens, where you're in a car with a bunch of people, but the tape or CD that you're playing, the album that you're playing at that point is so great. And you're in that early prime stage of listening to it, where every time you hear each song, it feels like you're unlocking the joy for the first time. Those are just some of the memories that just mean so much to me. The time that Greg Corvino and I were driving in a full car with Abbey Road playing and the sunroof open on the way to Milford Highlight in high school. The time that Rich Brenny would pick me up as I was walking home from school, and he'd be like, "You want to ride home the rest of the way?" And then the cool kids in that tiny car listened to 10 by Pearl Jam, and they're stopping in front of my house, and I'm not getting out of the car. No one's saying anything because we're in the middle of porch. And it's just like, oh my God, this album is speaking to me. There were moments like that with the Jerky Boys CD, where you're just in the back of someone's car, they've pulled into your driveway, but you're just going to stay sitting there for the next 20 minutes crying out of laughter because it was so funny. I effed with that movie that they made. I didn't just love the Jerky Boys. I fell into them so early at a time where it wasn't like it was mainstream. You had to know who sold the bootleg CD. I remember having to go to this used record store in Waterbury, Connecticut, like in the ghetto, and you had to ask the guy that worked there, "Hey, you got that Jerky Boys CD?" And they'd be like, they'd open up like this box under the register of like rare imports, and they'd be like, "Yeah, but it's going to cost you, twice as much." I bought their second, third, fourth. I remember even when I got a roommate in 2000 who spoke a lot, who was himself speaking largely in Jerky Boys one-isms. I remember he was still following their work at that point. He had like the 5th, 6th, 7th tape, and we were getting back into it all over again. They're one of the great things that arrived, took hold of my pulp culture window during that period, took hold of it. I could not make a sentence without a Jerky Boys joke in it, but then disappeared from the side of the earth. Never had some big reunion or some big thing where they introduced themselves to the next generation. I'm sure half of you were like, Frank Rizzo, what the hell are you talking? Saul Rosenberg, bring all my shoes and glasses. You know what I mean? Like, no one knows what I'm talking about. There's like 4 of you old guys. This was these crank callers were the greatest thing that ever happened. All right, pre-caller ID. They brought in a new era of prank calling. It was great. Maybe some people remember Crank Yankers. That was pretty cool. They weren't the Jerky Boys. They were inspired by the Jerky Boys. All right, where did I F with them? They were my life. Thank you, Signature Sounds. All right, let's finish this off. A couple more. Jeremy Allen W supporting. Jeremy Allen is smaller than your kids. Is smaller than your kids as Carrie Vaughn. Oh, you're saying are you telling, I don't know what you're telling, but you're telling me the guy who plays Kerry Von Erich is smaller than my kids. Is that what you're telling me? I'm gonna have to watch it and get back to you, Alan Delbo, all right? Back to Brantendo. Good call on Mexican breakfast. That's among my favorite. Yeah, chilaquiles. Yeah, exactly. I know we can make jokes about Shab Shab over pronouncing these in Gringo Poppy, but chilaquiles is insanely good. My brother-in-law works for a West Coast breakfast chain called Snooze. Have you heard of this? He's Colorado based, but I went to the Snooze in Phoenix during Jake Paul Anderson Silva fight week, and dropped his name, by the way, and got like a free appetizer, which is pretty cool. But anyway, because he's like a marketing manager or something. I had the chilaquiles on their menu for breakfast, and I was like, this is the greatest breakfast I've ever eaten. Okay, thank you. So I'll take American Mexican based breakfast above them all. Thanks, Brantendo. Also from Alan W. Ali got beat up in training, hurt him bad in time. Yeah, I mean that's unfortunately that era, the 70s and the 80s and the 90s to some. I mean, Riddick Bowe was washed at age 28. Washed. Physically washed. I have to believe that's the old school gym wars mentality. The same mentality that was rampant in mixed martial arts up until like a few years ago and might still be rampant in certain gyms. The whole idea of constantly proving yourself where you have better fights in the gym in terms of craziness and back and forth than you do in your real fights. That takes chunks off of the end of your career. Monster chunks. No question about it. Does it get you better? Does it keep, I mean, it's part of that. Those were eras where people fought more often too. And I'm sure that keeps you sharp, but the price to pay is massive. Do, how about just the truth? BC acted like Virgil Ortiz clearly won when he got knocked down twice and got his face beaten. That's just corrupt, so he deserves it. Oh, I think you're referencing the Bohachuk fight in which Ortiz got dropped twice. I believe I still have it for Ortiz, just barely. You definitely good argument for Bohachuk. It was a great fight. It was a fight of the year level type of great fight. I don't think I ever acted like he clearly won. I don't think you can say that, Do. Show me proof. Okay. Brody, I've been watching Pac-Man fights to get hyped for next weekend. I'm nervous he will be washed. In all honesty, how do you think he will look against Barrios? In all honesty, I'd have to guess. My best guess is that Pacquiao is competent in a decision loss in which he does not get physically walloped and broken down, but he has to rely on his veteran guile to not get broken down. That it is a, early competitive fight, but that the age catches up and then it becomes more about survival. There would be a win for Pacquiao in some way of losing a decision in which he, had some moments, but ultimately age caught up with him. What we don't want to see is, he just falls apart and gets absolutely beaten down. I think that the combination of his retaining speed, the fact that his chin has never really given in, and the fact that he's bounced back from such destructive knockout losses like it never happened, the time off, I mean, we're asking so much of him. I think going the distance and not getting his ass literally kicked is a win. That's where I'm more at the moment. That's where I'm at more at the moment. I don't know. All right, what do we got? Final one. Wait, Brantendo, what the F are the Jerky Boys? Yeah, so the Jerky Boys, if I didn't explain that properly through a half hour of talking in circles, were two gentlemen, each of who could do multiple characters, who made multiple CDs of just prank calls, elaborate prank calls, 10-minute prank calls, in which they normally pushed for something, applied for a job, pushed for a service, and stuck so aggressively into character that it wasn't easy for the person on the other end to realize they were getting duped so aggressively. And then the humor of their characters and their one-liners, Frank Rizzo, Rizzo. I mean, this is, you got to, if you're looking for a taste, get the first CD, go back, listen to the first album, the first Jerky Boys album. Okay. Does that humor hold up now? It won't hold up as well, but it's pretty hilarious. And you got to understand, this is pre-internet. This is at a time when something like this could just slip through and it could just hit. Okay. There we go. Our final super chat here from from a great man, Michael Carson. Appreciate your return today, Michael Carson. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, BC. Even if MK created your own championship and hired only Kevin Lee to be the Factory Town MMA welterweight champion, is that where you're going? He'd find a way to not win the title. I mean, unfortunately, he might just have one of those, I don't want to say cursed careers, although there have seemingly been some real cursed moments in his career where he was still physically able and young, but he just can't stop losing or finding a way to fall apart in a fight. I almost want to compare it to somebody like Joseph Benavidez, although Joseph Benavidez was much more successful and is one of the greatest flyweights of all time. He just couldn't get over that hump and got really damn close a bunch of times, and then it would just kind of disastrously fall apart outside of that really close first fight that he had with DJ. Kevin's not as successful or talented in terms of what he's proven in that regard. In terms of raw talent, he's incredible. But yeah, the end of the day, ultimately, unfortunately, Bill Parcells was right. You are what your record says you are. But to me, Kevin Lee will forever be, he'll be forever young and he'll forever be future champion. Kevin Lee, even if that future championship has to be a GFL or Eagle FC or what have you. All right, that's BC. Okay. We talked in circles. I hope you got something from this: entertainment, joy, an uplifting moment, or just more fuel to clown me. It's your choice, though. Thank you for playing. Thank you for the support. Duran knows what I'm talking about with the Jerky Boys. He knows exactly what I'm talking about. Okay. Thank you. One more from Brody, because he knows the questions that are going to get me talking here. BC, what's your favorite song from Abbey Road? I always liked She Came In Through the Bathroom Window. You put door, but that's fine. I've long said, I don't know if I believe it as much anymore, but for like most of my adult life, Abbey Road was my favorite album of all time. It's no longer. I'd have to guess it's no worse than top 5, but I'm in the midst of trying to fill out a top 20 or maybe even a 10, but I gotta figure out right now, what do I really believe here? Abbey Road is monumental, and the last 16 minutes and 44 seconds, which is from You Never Give Me Your Money, song 9, all the way through not only the end, but the additional mini ditty of Her Majesty dumped on. I've said, I don't know if there's a better 17 minutes in rock history. So I'd love to give you the answer and say that my favorite song is the entire Paul McCartney driven medley that closes the album, the entire second half of it, from You Never Give Me Your Money into Mean Mr. Mustard, Sun King, Polythene Pam. Obviously the crossover point from Polythene Pam into She Came In Through the Bathroom Window, the build up into the explosion is, if there is a better moment of that in rock history, then it would have come on Led Zeppelin 2 when Heartbreaker meets Living Loving Maid, right? Or maybe even, and this is kind of a deep cut, but the first track off of Elton John's Don't Let the Sun Come Down on Me, which is Song for a Funeral, Funeral for a Friend, that immediately turns into Love Lies Bleeding. That moment rules too. But obviously that's not one song, and I can't answer that. The best song on the album is Something by George Harrison. And it's a shame that it's, of all his songs, most of which are underrated, especially the songs he wrote for the Beatles in the second half of the Beatles' career. That's the best one. It's the most overplayed because it's probably the highest charting single he had in Beatles history. But there was a time where Something was I thought was the greatest song ever written. I mean, it's just a fantastic song. So that would be my answer for that one. But that medley is what ultimately puts that album from an all-time great to, in my opinion, literally one of the greatest records ever written. It's hard to say there's a better Beatles album than Revolver. It really is. But there is one, and it's Abbey Road. Thank you very much. Okay. I'm going to figure out the rest of my life. Thanks for joining Project Zeb. Thank you for checking out this ramble. BC and LT should remake Crank Yankers. If we could do like an MMA version of Crank Yankers, it'd be the next high court. It'd be the next great, we just need money. We just need a studio. We just need to go in your house and break your toilet. Thank you. Cheers to Sandine. Cheers to all the guys out there. Clay Luke as well. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you as well. Mahalo to all my Hawaiians, including Telvin. Tell Governor BJ to stay off the internet. All right. That's all I got for today. Take care of yourself though. Believe in yourself, because there's, as hard as it is to get to a level of irrational belief in yourself that everything's going to work out and you're going to achieve all your dreams. And it is hard to get to that point. It's even harder after that point when you're met with the setback and you're met with adversity. But those are just moments to test whether you really want it, whether you're really about that life. Be about that life because you only get one. Go for it. Outside of a one-on-one situation sexually with another person, no doesn't have to be no. No could mean not yet. No could mean you're not ready yet. No could mean show me how badly you really want it. Whatever you want in life, get after it. You don't have to know how you're going to get there, but you do have to put one foot in front of the other and walk boldly in the direction of your dreams. And the more you go down that path and go down that road, the answers and the doors begin to open and appear right in front of you. Believe that you're here for more than just an ordinary life that ends with a gravestone in your neighborhood. Believe that you can change this world. Believe that you can bring joy to people's hearts. Believe that you have art, something inside of you that's valuable and the world needs to see it. It's time. Get out of your own way and go after it. That's all I got for you. All right. I'm out of here. Thank you. I got a great song, though. You should check out on the way out.